alive. Sits home deep like a heartbeat pulse. Electro dreams where we are lost. Neon waves take us back in time.
Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, Masagi Toner. We're here with a very special episode of VSW Podcast. Special night, special time, and a special guest. That's right, one of the greatest wrestlers in the whole state of Maine, the one and only Eric Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
You know, I can't not hear anything about wrestling up in Maine without hearing your name mentioned. You're like one of those pivotal people up there that have just made the scene what it is.
Yeah, actually this Friday makes 21 years I've been doing this in the state of Maine. So between promoting, wrestling, the whole 9 yards, I've had my hand in everything, the highs and the lows of Maine wrestling. Yeah.
And I mean, not for nothing, you say, what, 21 years? The landscape of Maine wrestling has changed dramatically in that time. Just,
Oh yeah.
New promotions, wrestling becoming more mainstream, more popular.
Mm.
You have things like Limitless emerging and just blowing up the scene, doing all new things that, was never thought of being done, like at the Coliseum. Nobody 21 years ago thought they probably could fill the Coliseum with wrestling fans if it was there.
No, definitely not. I've seen back when I first started, you thought 100 people was a great turnout, and nowadays when you're filling buildings that size, it's an amazing feat to see, especially from an independent level, not like a big time like WWE or AEW or any of those guys. Like on an independent level,
when I went to that show, it had that almost like a house show feeling. Like it was packed.
Right.
It was big. It didn't feel like, and not that it's not packed and big in a regular Garmin show or other shows, but
Right.
it was just the magnitude. You have an upper balcony, you have other chairs, you have front row. Everything's just separated. It makes it so much larger to see people filling those seats. It was just great to see that. I think the turnout was, very impressive. But when you first started, wrestling wasn't like that. The scene wasn't there like that. It was.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, who was when you got in? Who was running up there? Tony Atlas, Christian Nickerson. Who?
When I got started, the people that were running, Tony was doing, he was doing his shows. And I think when I started, he still had TV at that time. And then you had Sonny, Roselli, and Larry Huntley were running New Wrestling Horizons at that time. And that was about it. Christian didn't come in more so until after Tony stopped running as much to almost give an outlet to a lot of guys. Because here's what essentially happened. I came in right in the midst of all that. Like you had people that were working for Sonny and Larry for New Wrestling Horizons, but you also had Tony, who had his own different set of guys that he also trained, but also guys he brought in. Like he brought in the French Connection, all their guys, all their kid students. Like he brought in a bunch of different people that weren't in Maine all the time. While I feel like Sonny and Larry were using a lot of the Maine talent. Your Rugged Rick Daniels your Matthews, your Hazards, your Dangerous Donnies, and stuff like that. Guys that were local to the scene in Maine, but over there, Tony was bringing in a lot of guys from out of state to wrestle the guys he was training and bringing up, like Ryan Michaels and Chase Sanatone, Casey Duncan, Luke Robinson, things like that.
So that's interesting, though, like you say, because that kind of, wrestling can kind of be summed up in those ways of just promotion. Like some promotions, they really heavily focus on those local guys and pushing them and getting them spotlight and getting their names out there. And then you do have other promotions just like to bring people in or bring other talent into the area and have them work the local guys.
Right.
And then you have other promotions that you see a fine blend of that today.
For sure. Today, I feel like right now, there's so many well, actually, the reason why there's so many, that's the reason why I started Ring Wars, is because there's just so many promotions running now in the state of Maine. Before, it'd be like one or two that actively ran, and now there's like 5. It's wild. So, Maine's quite a spread out state. So the fact that you got and with that, like a lot of these companies, they use a lot of the same talent, but they also you'll see them bringing in people like you never thought. Like I know this coming Friday, MPW is bringing in Cruel from MLW, and I'm like, that's why. Like I would never have thought
That
I'd
is
see
wild.
Cruel.
I'm honestly looking
Like
forward
what?
to that show.
Awesome, but like I never thought I'd see Cruel in Maine like ever.
Not
Like
in Maine, no. I've seen him like, I've seen him wrestle Blitzkrieg. I've seen him wrestle Beyond. He was just IWTV champ, but now they got him coming to Maine. And on the same show, you got Eugene on there too.
polar opposites too, which is great. Like the characters, they're polar opposite. I think it's great that they have such a mix and that they're able to do that. But I was just like, I was shocked. Like, oh, so you're bringing in Eugene and Cruel, and literally that show is like 10 minutes from my apartment. It's one of the closer venues to where I live. So I'm like, and I'm on the show too. So I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I'm like don't have to go far. Nothing.
I'm excited, Child Play. It's my first MPW show. I know they're almost coming up to 1 year anniversary, and I started following them when they first started. That first show on the Indian place,
Indian Island, yeah, Penobscot, Indian Island.
Yeah, and I've really followed them, and I've had Johnny Primer on talking about his hardcore title runs a couple times. I've had Meg Lavelle come on the the ring announcer. She talked about shows. It's been one of those shows I've been trying to get, and the cards just never have lined up. But this Friday, everything's kind of lined up to go to Maine. It is kind of hard sometimes getting from state to state, especially when it's like a 4 or 5 hour ride.
Oh yeah, it's a hell of a ride. Yeah, like the old town. Yeah, it's fire.
I got shafted during the Herman show. My car, like, I have a problem with the antifreeze system and like one of the hoses.
The Cardona show.
I don't know, but it keeps overheating. So I had to get it fixed.
So did you have tickets to the Cardona show and you weren't able to go?
Yeah, I mean, I had tickets. I sponsored matches on it. I mean,
well, yeah, I thought they put you over, and I was just, I thought I wasn't there because I had to work, but like I was shocked. I heard you weren't there, and I'm like, he sponsored the thing.
Yeah, so I had that. I had one of the matches on that, and I actually had the main event at the last Garmin show. And again, my car just couldn't make it, so I'm like, watching from IWTV.
Right, and they do YouTube now too. MLS does YouTube.
Well, yeah, YouTube too. I actually prefer the YouTube because you can kind of chat with people, and I think that's kind of fun because you can kind of see other fans and you get to know them that you might have known. Or people from Mass that don't always go to Maine because not everybody's crazy like me. They won't drive 3-4 hours to a show.
Well, I also think it's probably good that Randy puts it on the YouTube since he has such a huge following on there. You know what I mean? Like that's probably
the reason got that plaque, and not for nothing with YouTube and other things. If you want to keep things going, you got to keep watch hours up. And there's no better way to get watch hours than to put a great show up that everybody.
Oh yeah, live stream. Yeah, you can't get better than that. No,
and it honestly, it's great for the fans that don't have IWTV. It's great for people just to get the name out there because there's still people, believe it or not, that don't know what Limitless is, don't know what indie wrestling is in general. They don't understand it. They don't realize that it's changed. When I first went to
different promotions and stuff. They don't realize that. Like I was talking to Aiden Andrews over at MPW there. He runs MPW, and we ran into an issue. And me and Randy too, because he has a Let's Wrestle show coming up too. There's literally 4 shows in a 2-week time span. There's 4 weeks. There's 4 shows in 2 weeks. There's MPW's Friday, and then MEW Saturday, and then the following week Saturday is my show, the Ring Wars 2, the one that I host. It's like a competition between the promotions, and then on the Sunday he's doing a matinee show like he did in Herman in Milford, and it's Let's Wrestle. And we ran into an issue where people are hitting up the wrong people for tickets. Someone hit me up for tickets for the Let's Wrestle show because they got the tickets and they had some issue, and I'm like, wrong person, but I put them in touch with Randy. And then the same thing happened. I got hit up for tickets for the Old Town show for MPW, and I'm like, wrong person. I'm gonna send you in the right direction. And then I send him in the direction of Aiden Andrews for MPW, and he goes, that's funny because someone hit up tickets for you for your show, and I sent them your way, and then also sold tickets to my show. I'm like, you sneaky bastard. But
I think that's why MPW did what they did. They made it easy. They're just selling tickets at the door. No online sales, not just go there and get them.
The problem with that in Maine is we have some really shitty weather up here this time of year. So, and more than likely, a lot of the wrestling companies won't cancel their show. So it's like if you were to like, oh, I'll hold them at the door, and the snowstorm happens, and you have a name like Eugene on the show, and there's blizzards happening outside, you're like, well, how am I going to pay for Eugene without tickets? So, I mean, I have it so that I have multiple ways to buy the tickets, all done through via Venmo, Facebook Pay,
Yeah,
PayPal,
no.
Eventbrite,
And I
all that
know
fun
the other
stuff.
tickets usually were sold before pre-sale, but I was just told that this show they'll be sold at the door.
Really?
Yeah.
For MPW?
Yeah.
They're going to get them at the door. Well, it's probably because the front row is most of the shows around here, and I'll say most of them. I'd say 90 to 95% of any shows around here nowadays, they all have their local followings. So the first row seating is gone within the first week or two the show gets announced. And then that's for most any shows that are heavily
Yeah, I
promoted.
mean, limitless is 5 minutes. 5 minutes, under
Oh, yeah.
5 minutes, that front row is gone.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why I don't even think MPW put the tickets out. I think it's just $10. It said all seats.
Mhm.
First come, first serve at door.
Oh, yeah. It's a big gymnasium. It's a huge gymnasium. So.
Price for having both Eugene and Cruel on the show, like you would think it'd be a hike.
Yeah. I don't know how he's doing that. I know they got sponsors. A lot of the promotions around here try to get sponsors.
Well,
To
that's
help.
the way. I mean, not for none, I sponsor a lot of wrestling, and I know that it helps because it does help bring in the guys. Not only is it great, honestly, and I'll tell this to anybody because a lot of people don't get it, or they'll think you're throwing money around, or you're doing this and that. At the end of the day, sponsorship is a form of advertising.
Correct.
I'm advertising whatever I'm running at whoever's show. So say I'm doing Ring Wars, I'm sponsoring a match.
Sure.
It happens to be a match with wrestlers that I happen to like. I'm going to invite them on my show. We're going to talk about your show on my show. And I want to hit, the people from Ring Wars might not know my podcast. So now I want them to know who I am. So
Now they find your podcast because of the show. Right. Makes sense.
And you're going to announce my name and you're going to have a banner maybe, or you
Yeah.
might do whatever.
Put
and
over
that's going to
everything.
get your crowd to tune into me, perhaps. Maybe
Mhm.
not the first time. Maybe I have to do it a couple times. Maybe it don't work at all, but it's a shot. It's a shot at it, and it also hits the demo directly. I'm hitting wrestling fans. I'm not blindly putting up Google ads. I'm not blindly putting up things where I'm going to get all sorts of different people. I'm hitting fans that are at a show, watching wrestling, watching the people that I might talk about. So it's just direct marketing for me. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, you're also reaching the market. Like if your podcast talks about wrestling, so you're hitting the right market. B, you're hitting people that, like you said, that may not know your podcast exists. So now you're getting new content viewers. And it'll wrestling helps wrestling is what I used to say. So like everybody back in the day, like when we talked about earlier, like Tony having his thing and then Sonny Larry having their thing, and back in the day, everybody kind of like feuded with each other. Legit, like not like full on shoot. Like they were like, "Oh, you can't work for them if you work for me." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think that's a thing of the past because, like, first off, like getting wrestlers specifically to work for you now would be a conundrum unless you're offering them an absorbent amount of money. But
no one's getting a contract.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're getting like an absorbent amount of money, no one's going to do that. It's an independent market. But to get back to what I was saying, like back in the day, everybody was like one against the other. And now everybody kind of works together. So you see a lot of the same guys on the same shows, which is great in a sense, but also not because you're kind of like watering yourself down sometimes, I guess. But I get it from an independent contractor standpoint. You want to get as many bookings as possible. So who am I to judge? I guess it all depends.
I guess it all depends on what you do with the people. If you can make them different in your show and make them do something that they're not going to be able to see in X, Y, and Z. I mean, math is a lot more fun. You say 5 promoters, we got like 30 up here. You're talking 5 shows. Well, there'll be like 3 or 4 shows same night. You got to pick and choose where you want to go.
I've seen all the different advertisements because I have all the wrestlers on my Facebook, and I'll see like there's like 4 or 5 shows in one night. I'm like this, or one weekend. I'm like that's a lot. But Massachusetts is also a big area, right?
It is, but not as big as Maine. I mean, if you drive 4 hours, most likely you're out. You drive 4 hours in Maine, you're still in Maine.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong.
You keep going north until you see some of the Tim Hortons, and just keep going, and then you're in Canada.
Yeah.
But and I've been to wrestling shows way up there too. It's just like total weather change, the atmosphere, everything changes as you keep going up further. But it's a fun ride. I enjoy the ride in Maine because for me it's peaceful. I find Maine to be a peaceful area. Even before I was heavily into wrestling, I used to like to go out there. A, it has some of the best cannabis dispensaries, but B, I just find I don't know, there's something about it. The people there, I would go to like Old Orchard, is it Old Orchard? I don't know, Marginal Way. I'd walk that area. I'd go
Old
into,
Orchard's a nice little spot during the summer for sure.
yeah, I would go into Portland, check out their area. They have a great donut shop. I would do different things, with a friend, with friends and stuff all the time in Maine. A little
Mhm.
escape. It's not as crowded. It's bigger, but it's not as crowded as Mass. It doesn't. There's a lot of driving, a lot of highway to get A to B.
Everything's not
There's
squished in. Everything's not like compiled in one little space. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice driving out like that because I'm used to so much just stop and go traffic wherever I go, it's just all because there's so many condos now being built and everything just being built up that got a lot more people coming in, a lot more
Right.
people living in smaller areas. Maine's still very much scattered, so I find that like to drive to Maine is easier even to drive to like Worcester or Western Mass. It's easier for me to go 2 hours up to Maine. But I've noticed though the wrestling, like I said, when I first started watching and really focusing on indie wrestling. So I watched I didn't watch it. I went to it as a kid, and it wasn't like this. That's what I'm saying. Like in the '90s, indie wrestling was literally a bunch of no-name guys, and then like Honky Tonk Man was there, and Warlord, and they had Tito Santana. They were bringing in names and then just having local guys work. But we were so young. And there wasn't an outlet to watch these guys regularly. We would never be able to follow these local guys show to
Right.
show because it was magazines. But unless you were somebody, you were not in a magazine.
Yeah, it
And
was
there
that or
wasn't-
tape
there
trading
was-
too was another thing, but that'd be about your only way to see those type of people. Tape trading was a thing. VHS tapes.
And if people happened to tape matches, you could swap tape. But that wasn't even again till later, till people even had these recording devices, portable enough to be able to bring them or afford them.
Yeah.
And so, wrestling was just like that. It was cool to meet the old people, but you weren't getting involved. When I went back in 2017 and I stepped through, my first show I went to was NCW out in Dedham. They're a long running company. They've had a lot of people in there. And, I saw likes like Anthony Green, for instance. I saw him wrestle on the show. I saw Aiden Agro, Danger Kid, and Alexander Lee on that show.
Yep.
Okay, they were on there. I saw BRG on that show. Trying to think who else. There was a few others, but everybody had this aura about them. They were a star. They had a presence about them. They had a character, a definition, who they were as a wrestler. People cheered for them. People booed for them. People were invested in them. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. These people got character. This is wrestling like TV with just out of budget, no $1 million behind it. And I got into it because the storylines were for me, more intimate because you're right there. You're right on top of it watching everything.
Yeah.
And so then I slowly started getting into it when I started to follow things like Beyond Wrestling. And Beyond led me into Limitless Wrestling. And I was all set to go to that show right before the pandemic with AG versus Chris Stat. And then the pandemic hit and everything just went to shit. But after that, I would venture out and then I would learn, all the shows that were out there, NAWA and, was still running then. And then, like I said, we've had you even said too, but there's been a bunch. MPW's about a year in. EWA came back. And just
came back. Yeah.
just
And MEW, a few other companies. Yeah.
a few others now that have kind of sprung up and have spread out. And you guys don't like run on top of each other. If you do, you try to make it work. I know like one of the Limitless shows, there was another Rumble in another part of Maine, and some of the guys made it out. They made it a little bit earlier.
They did both, yeah. I think that was EWA and Limitless. They did it so that some could do both, which I thought was great. Also, I feel like that could have been avoided if somebody just said, "Hey, we're running this day." I'm pretty good about, because with running wars with that topic, I communicate with all the promotions, because that's what what mine is. Mine's a competition. It's not a promotion. That's why I have to explain to people. I'm like, I'm not an owner. I'm hosting a competition between promotions. So I communicate with all of them. So I actually kind of help in a sense, because I know when everybody runs.
So
And
you can get,
I'll tell
hey,
people, tell them, like, you don't want to run that day because so and so is running that day. Oh, really? Yeah, you didn't know that? No, well, I'm telling you now, you don't want to run that day because so and so is running that day. Oh, okay, and that helps. So I'm happy I'm able to do that. But just the fact that sometimes people don't reach out to one another and communicate, and sometimes they do, and people just do it to be spiteful.
oh yeah, I mean there is still some competitive edge in wrestling, and Mass probably even more than Maine, but not everybody wants to work together. There's people that still have that old mentality of,
Yeah,
you do better, or we can shut them down, or they can't run in this, or they can't run that. But then you have other people that work together well that were able to, you'll see like Beyond run an early show, and then Rad Pro run an earlier later show, and then another show. And I remember like AG did 3 shows one day. You go into Worcester to Amesbury to Maine and work 3 matches one day, all lined up. Boom, boom, boom.
that's awesome.
That's impressive. Me as a wrestler, but as a fan, there's 3 shows running. You can technically make it. I've been to shows where you can make it to a next show if they lined it all up. So the talent can get there and work both, so no one's getting poached. Because you're right, a lot of the talent is the same. If you got a name on your show that's kind of big in the area, everybody's got him because he's either a champion or he's somebody important in the storyline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember back, like I just started promoting again with the Ring War stuff, but back in the day, I owned for about 9 years. I owned IWE before I sold it, and someone else took it over. But I remember one of the last the fourth or fifth show before I got done, we actually ran head to head against Limitless, and it was literally towns apart. I was running in Brewer, Maine, and Limitless was running in Orono, Maine, and we were like maybe a 20-minute drive from apart, and neither of us wanted to change our date, and we went for it. We both ran, and we literally split the town. I said we literally split the state in half, is what we said, because I drew like 138, and at the time in Orono, because it's the American Legion Hall, he drew like 149, 152, something like that. I can't remember the exact number. So we literally cut the attendance in half.
But if you ran individual shows not at the same time, you each would have probably got 300.
Yeah, that's the problem. So if we had probably not have ran at the same time, one of us would have easily broke that 250 mark. But we split the crowd right in half, man. it was
And
pretty.
I think
rough.
December was kind of hard because everybody wants to get their shows in before the weather gets bad, and before the holidays really start to settle, because then nobody wants to spend money on wrestling. So crowding in shows. But no, the mentality has changed. Things like Ring Wars probably wouldn't even exist where promotions work or talk to each other or talk about each other.
Exactly. Well, Ring Wars was like a small little brainchild I had back in my brain for a long time. I just didn't know what to call it. I always thought like, hey, if all the promotions just talk to work together, you could all run one, like not like one big show or one big competition. And I because I've been around so long, and I literally work for all the promotions up here. Literally, I think the only one I currently don't work for on a regular is Larry's NAWA or EWA, because they're so farther south. I can't, because of my work related. I make $100 an hour at my job, so I'm not screwing that up anyway. So, but because I work for all these promotions, I pitched the idea, because I used to promote before. Hey guys, not looking to do this all the time, but maybe every 4 months, every 3 months, I'd like to do this thing called Ring Wars, which is a competition between the promotions. And they're like, that sounds awesome. And I was like, every promotion nominates talent and sends them to me to compete against one another. So I do a system where they nominate 4 people, send them to me, and usually do 3 to 4 promotions depending on the event and how many matches I want to do that show. and then I put them against each other. And
See, yeah, it's funny because I was talking to a person the other day, not something similar to that. Well, not similar, but we were talking about maybe taking like the way indie wrestling is. If you were to look at it and do it, you could easily do like a point draft system. Like people could
you could.
draft wrestling teams. And I remember back in the day, my friend wanted to do something called a Promoters Cup, where it was going to be. It wouldn't be the wrestlers. The wrestlers would pick a wrestler to delegate who would be like they're in charge of the promotion. Like that would be their leader. And if they win, the promoter would get 1 point. If they didn't, whatever promoter won would get the 1 point. At the end of the system, he wanted to give like the promoter a cup, like a gold cup, and they would get the promoters.
See, we have a similar idea to that. So what we do is we don't have belts at Ring Wars because it's competition. We have medallions, kind of like a wrestling medals. You know, you'd get it at a amateur wrestling competition, but nice ones.
Yep.
And what it is, when you're there to represent your promotion or school, dojo, what organization, what have you. And while you're there, if you win your match, you get the medallion. Now, whatever group has the most medallions at the end wins that Ring Wars. So we're on Ring Wars 2 coming up. We already did Ring Wars 1. And we have a Ring Wars 3 coming up already and booked. We just finalizing the details. But the first Ring Wars, MEW won 3-2. They won 3 medallions. MPW came in second with 2.
So literally like an Olympics for wrestling.
Pretty much for professional wrestling, yeah. So what it is, though, eventually, what I'm doing is the medallions add up to something. So every show we keep track of how many medallions every group has. Once a group has 5 or 6 medallions, they can cash them in for an opportunity at a shot at a grand champion, which is we'll have 1 belt as like the champion. Think of it like in Mortal Kombat, like you after you finally defeat Goro, you have to face Shang Tsung. Well, we'd have someone like that. That'd be the Shang Tsung figure that you'd have to defeat. And
is it all singles competition?
There's all singles matches mostly, but usually I try to do one tag, and one tag because that one tag match counts for 2 medallions, not just 1. So that could be the game changer for the event. So essentially, like someone's on a deficit and they get into a tag match, and their tag match happens, and they win those. They could go from 0 to 2 in that one.
And all of a sudden they're up a point.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they're up a point.
Yeah, and everything is by chance and fate. The whole thing is like I'm more of, like I said, I'm the host. I'm not the promoter. This is just a competition. So what I do is to make it so that I'm not favoritizing anybody. Everything's done by fate. So to pull back the curtain, so to speak, let's not treat people like they're stupid. Everybody understands like wrestling's kind of predetermined and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay? We're not going to say the F word. We will say the other stuff, but we're not going to treat people like they're stupid. So what I do as the host, I literally sit and I record videos of myself and I flip a coin to decide who wins every contest. It's done by fate.
You know, that's awesome, because I was gonna ask how would one even pick something like that, because you can't show favoritism towards one promotion. That just would piss off every other promoter. Be like, well, what the hell? What about me? I'm your friend. I'm using you next week. Why aren't you picking me?
Yeah, I know. So when I originally pitched the idea, I had to tell people that. I was like, this is by fate.
I used to pick who won my matches as a kid playing with my recipe. I'll flip a coin, be like, okay, this one's winning, or this one's getting out of the rumble, or this is it. And you know what? It worked 90% of the time.
And believe it or not, the promoters think it's fun. I have a group chat with all the promoters in it. And that's how I determine everything. And I don't send the videos every coin flip because that's a pain in the ass, but I do have them if they want to see them. And I go, okay, guys, here's the results. And I do it a week beforehand so that they all get like a rebuttal. They get 1 rebuttal, like a reflip. So they get 1 like life preserver if they want to use it. And they think it's fun. It's great. And I know that we're breaking the 4th wall, but we're breaking that 4th wall, but whatever.
It has a different element to pro wrestling that wouldn't maybe not be in a normal show. Because more than a normal show, you know, things might be even more predetermined. That so the fact that because you got to carry to the next storyline and keep it going, and so certain people do have to win. Now in this case, it's left up to total chance, and even the promoters don't even know that who's winning until, like you said, the week before. They don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
And it could just be your lucky day that your promotion got the most flips or whatever. It's like,
Yeah, it's very gambling ish, but with no money involved. It's very done to fate. I feel like it also allows people to focus more on the fact that it is a competition, and that they should be more focused on the matches to earn that medallion, because it's like you almost like you're earning something. So, and whereas done by fate, anybody could win. Anybody.
And you're coming out representing your company or your promotion or your, like you said, your dojo, whatever you've done, or wherever you're wrestling from, you're coming out representing that. So that's also, the fans that are at this, competition, they might not know your brand. You might be a little bit further north than some of these people that come and see. Now all of a sudden they know who you are. They're gonna go say, hey, that kid wasn't too bad. He might have only got 2 medals, but I'm gonna go check out that promotion now too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, because what I do is you go to wrestling shows and you see all the guys set up all their merch and stuff, and I'm like, that's fine, but there's a way that we gotta make that better. So what I do is every promotion has their own area, and all their guys are in that area. So they're at the table. Then the promotion gets to put their stuff on the table, and now the promotion has their guys at the table. So the guys can sell their merch, but also the promotion can push their next show.
So you got friendly tribalism going on. I like that.
That's what the whole point of Ring Wars was about. I tell everybody, like, oh, everyone's like, you're running another promotion. I'm like, no, this is a competition, and it's done out of good
It's different.
sport.
It's a reality. It's almost like a reality show in my eyes, like a reality show based on pro wrestling. This is
Right.
what would happen if this was to happen. If we took the parts of this, put them together, this is what's going to happen.
Correct.
I like that, though.
Yeah,
Is the first one,
fresh.
is the first one on YouTube, or can folks find that?
Well, this is where I make it very, very, how you say it? This makes it almost brings you back to the tape trader days. I created something on the side here, which Randy from Limitless is helping me out with, and my graphics guy Chris Rex is helping me out with. We call it the Tape Traders series. What it is, we're putting out the DVD version of every event, and we sell a limited amount of copies. And once those copies are gone, I then release it it's going to be released on the Limitless YouTube page. This way it reaches more attendance levels and people that normally wouldn't see it. So I already gave Randy the blessing. We've sold a lot of copies of the DVD. Personally, I've sold a bunch. I have I think less than 20 left. But I give him the thumbs up.
I'm going to have to get one of those DVDs.
Yeah, we'll talk after. We'll set it up and I'll mail it to you, whatever.
Even if I see you Friday, bring it Friday.
Yeah, I'm with me at the show Friday. I'll be there. But after the next Ring Wars event is over with, then we release the footage. So this way, it's like if you're paying a ticket to watch the show, you're seeing something special, because it's not going to be right out the next day to watch.
I like that, because it gives the people that were there something that
something to belong to.
If you went to Raw back in the day, people didn't necessarily know the taping results until the following week or whatever. Right. Pay-per-view, same thing. If they didn't watch it, they had to wait for a magazine to come out to tell you what happened.
Right. And then the best part is when where we get to hold on to that footage for the 2 months or so until it airs, or whatever, 3 months, whatever it may be, is that I come in and I do the commentary with Randy and at Limitless, and we do all that stuff. So you get the commentary, you get all the graphic work, you get the full treatment with the DVD, which he'll then use the footage later.
Fully edited, nice looking, clean cut.
Right.
Final product. And
it works
DVD,
out great.
I mean, who doesn't like a DVD, honestly? You pop
right,
it
and it's cost effective. It's $20. It's $20 for a DVD, and you get to keep it. It's 2 discs. It's got the insert and everything. It looks nice. It looks nice, and we're going to do that for every event, and we sell a certain quantity, so that's why we call it the Tape Trader series. So you can only once they're gone, they're gone. You can't get them again. So then they'll be, obviously by then they will release eventually, like I said, on the Limitless YouTube. I'm also letting all the promotions have full and free access to the footage once the next Ring Wars happens. So Ring Wars 2,
their matches or their promotions matches if they want and showcase
they
them
can have
as
them.
well. And then I heard there's even there's another YouTube channel Randy got going on, which got all of Maine wrestling on there too.
The Wrestling Collection, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What it is when I sold IWE a long time ago. We had two different runs on Fox up here in Maine, and two different runs of TV. One was for like 3 years of 1 hour weekly stuff, and then another was for another year of a half an hour weekly show instead. But so he had like 4 years of TV footage plus the 9 years of footage on like a giant stack of hard drives. And I had given them to, I was going to give them to the promoters that bought IWE when they finished paying me off for the company. And they made their payments and they did pay me off. And I said, what do you want me to do with these giant stack of hard drives? They're literally the history of your company. The 9 years of footage are right here on these giant stack of hard drives. And I ended up giving them to the booker at the time, who was Aftershock Adam Ricker. And then he passed them off to Randy for safekeeping, because Randy's good about keeping footage and stuff. And he got the blessing to kind of air a lot of that old stuff on the YouTube. So there's like old stuff of like Mistress Belmont versus Barbie, like Honky Tonk Man versus like Heart Attack Tommy Mac, and Justin Incredible versus me when Justin Incredible was IWE champ. Like there's a bunch of different footage on there from over the years. Robbie Ellis and his last matches of his career. Think there's just random. There's a bunch of stuff. It's 9 years of footage. So
yeah, you got
he has that. So he's airing it on that channel, and yeah, it kind of lets people see but the quality isn't as great because it was, remember, video quality back then was different.
4K back then, it was like 120 DPI,
but you can watch it and it's entertaining, and there's a lot of memories there. There's the early years of MSP when there were Levi Lexington and Amon Jordan. There's an early Ace Romero when he was part of the Leatherheads as a tag team and not a singles wrestler. And there's lots of stuff. You just got to air it all and convert the files, because the files are older files, so he has to literally convert every file, and then not all the files, because there's so many of them, were completely labeled. So he has to like play Tetris and figure it out, But there's a lot of stuff there. He's just been pawing through it, putting stuff up, and bless him, it's a lot. So, and then like I said, he's getting all the Ring Wars stuff. So, and
Randy's probably also remastered. It's probably going to come back in 4K, high definition. He's redoing the sound quality.
Maybe
it's all going to be all
done. Yeah,
like a remastered version of a 30-year-old film.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of footage in there, and a lot of it has some great memories. And I mean, hopefully you can get a lot. Like some of it, I know he was having a hard time because some of it's so old, he can't even access some of the files, I guess. But you can't blame me. I kept track of that stuff. Like I did the best I could at the time to keep track of everything. And
you need a little help. He can maybe hit me up. I'm a little older than Randy. I might have some of those older apps that open these older video files.
Maybe.
I still have older computers.
Yeah.
I still have a computer from like 2002.
They might be able to do something now.
What we're using today, but I still have it. It still works.
Yeah, he hopefully he does, because like hopefully he's able to access some of that stuff's like probably like I have everybody remember everybody knows Sasha Banks, obviously, Monet. When she first started on the Indies, she was Mercedes KV.
Yeah.
And everybody talks about her first championship being the Chaotic Wrestling Women's Championship before she went to WWE. That is false. Her first championship was the IWE Women's Championship for me, which she had to forfeit when she went to the WWE. She literally had to hand the belt off to Mistress Belmont, who brought it up to a show for me, because she was supposed to, like Mercedes was supposed to wrestle Belmont on this show, but had to pull off because she got signed.
Yeah.
So she gave the belt to Mistress Belmont to bring back to Maine to me, and I had to find a replacement last minute for Mistress Belmont. And
not a lot of people probably know that, or even like they probably, like I said, there's Chaotic Wrestling, Mercedes, and they put those two together a lot. I didn't know that. I didn't even know she worked for you like that. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like,
and Randy will back that up for me from Limitless, because he sat in the audience and watched it as a kid. As a kid, a young kid, Randy used to watch my shows, and he'll
I know.
attest
I
to.
keep it honestly like because he has a lot of knowledge. I honestly forget how young Randy actually is.
He's followed it all along up until I eventually made him an announcer on my shows. I had needed an announcer, and he had a nice suit, and he really wanted to do it. And I said, all right, we'll give it a whirl. And that's when he started his announcing career, was for me. Eventually, when he started promoting
That's the first
full
profile
time
pic I
and
saw when I first met him. He had a suit on. He was looking good, doing
yep,
some announcing. Probably was your show. But
yeah,
he's someone like I said that I've always looked up to in Maine because I think he's changed the landscape of what Maine wrestling is. It showed people that
sure has. Yeah,
it can be comparative to what Beyond does or these other big channels. It doesn't just all have to be like Larry said. Larry said a lot of Maine is fair shows. It doesn't have to just be fair shows. It can be a combination of something bigger.
it's more than just
And
fair shows. It's to Larry, it's a lot of fair shows because he gets all the fair shows. Back in the day, there's a sort of called a fair convention where you go and it's in a big, like gymnasium down in southern Maine, and you go to this convention, and all the different fair representatives go, and this is where you kind of like sell your pitch. So like if you did, and this is not just wrestling, it's other stuff too. Like if you had like, oh, I have like a freak show thing where people are swallowing swords and shooting flames out their mouth, like that's how you would sell it to them.
yeah,
And not just like, or if you had like some type of trapeze act or something, like this is where
all
you
the
sell your
connies,
stuff.
all the connies are going down there, and they're just hanging out, showing what they got.
So Larry's the only one that goes. I used to go because back when I had IWE, I had 90% of the fairs because I was on TV. So I had a good chunk of them. I had Brooks, Skowhegan. I had North New Portland. I had a bunch of different little small festivals that hit me up. Anyway, I had a bunch of them, and eventually, when I stopped running, they left a giant hole in the market. And Larry was smart business, and he would go down there, and he gets all those fairs. He gets like every fair in the state. He gets just about every one of them, just about. Not all of them. He gets about a good 92%. There's a couple that are just against wrestling. Either A, they don't want to pay for what you want to get to pay for the wrestling, or they've been burned. Like when I first did the Skowhegan Fair, and I talked to them about having wrestling, and I did them for 3 years running. And when I first talked to them, they were very hesitant because one of the times they had wrestling way back in the day, they got burned. So they were very hesitant on having wrestling, and I built up a good rapport with them for 2 years. Then my third year was actually the reason why I got done promoting. On my third year running their fair, they would want to show every day at the fair, which is great. Not so much. Well, I
Yeah,
literally
it's hard to put together. Like, I talked to Larry. He runs these fairs that will go like 2-3 weeks in. That's good, but you need the talent every day to work these shows, and you need people to do all that. Like one show is hard to run.
right.
Running consecutively like that constantly, and keeping it entertaining, and keeping it somewhat different, and getting the talent, and making sure nobody's injured, and all of that. That's a lot of work and time and effort to put into it.
Yeah, that third year I did it, which made me want to sell IWE and get out of promoting. I had 18 cancellations that week. 18. I literally had a show and a half's worth of people cancel on me throughout that week. I was retired of not wrestling at the time because I'd stopped actively wrestling because I was in great health shape. Luckily, I'd had a bunch of surgeries and was feeling great and was shorthanded a couple days, so I started wrestling again. And one of the last days of that fair, I had to wrestle twice, like in 2 full-fledged matches. And I just sat there covered in sweat, dying. It was hot out. Bugs are biting me. And there's just literally maybe 10 other guys sitting there with me, maybe less. And they could all tell I was just irritated. And I just said, why am I even doing this? So, the worst part was half those people ended up leaving, and some stayed to help do the ring with me, and they could tell I was just done. And they were not surprised. The half that stayed were not surprised I was selling, just because of how many people canceled. I was like, why? Well, I'm not running these shows for me because I wasn't even wrestling. And at the time, I still had the TV show going on for IWE. So I'm not getting anything out of the TV. This is for the promotion. This is for the people. This is for the fans. This is for the wrestlers. And nothing was for me. And
Yeah.
why am I even doing it? Why am I doing this? So I eventually put it out there. I was selling it. I sold everything for 10 grand. I literally had a ton of stuff. I had a van, sound equipment, lights, entranceway, a ring with all the backup pieces you'd ever need, extra ropes, extra cables, extra metal, extra this, extra that, belts up the wazoo, all the tools and equipment, all the towns and deposits and TV show, website, the whole everything. Cameras, you name it. The 9 years of stockpiled footage. I sold. There was so much stuff. I sold all of it, and 10 G's got out.
That's a hell of a steal, I have to say.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to do it anymore, and the 10 G's was literally going to pay off all my business cards. I have a really good credit score right now, but that before, because I had so many business credit cards, it wasn't so good. It was going down because I would take money from one card to pay the next card.
If you're not going to do it, you're not going to do it, and it got you into the green. I can see it, and plus, I mean, I don't know what year it was, but I mean, 10,000 then probably wasn't 10,000 today.
Correct, definitely not.
And today might get you the ring and a couple of belts, maybe.
Yeah, depending what size ring you get.
You're not getting the truck, though. That's for sure.
No. I bought well, the thing was, the ring was old enough. It was the old Philly Spectrum ring. It had a history to it, and I had to track it down, which I'll tell you a story in a minute, which might pop you. So what ended up happening was I got it off of Sonny Roselli because he was done running, and there was a whole bunch of stuff. I paid him overtime and paid it off. But I had a guy that used to do welding on battleships for the Navy, and he did all my welding on the ring, and literally the ring would fit in a cargo van. So many pieces it was in. So so I can literally go anywhere. I could go cross country with that cargo van and rent it to somebody, which I almost did. I almost went to North Carolina for a ring rental. I didn't do it. It wasn't going to be cost effective. Anyway, so I knew it was like somebody told me when I bought it, the history of it, and all the different people that owned it, and it came from the Philly Spectrum. I didn't believe it until Shane Douglas came up to Maine for a wrestling show one time for the new owners of IW. And they didn't have anybody to drive him. And I was starting to go back to work for them, just wrestling. And I agree. I was like, hey, I'll pick them up from the airport for you and bring them all around. No biggie. So I picked them up. I brought them to the show. And I told him, this ring is really old, but it's been taken care of. And he's like, what do you mean? How old is it? He's like, well, from what I was able to track, this ring goes all the way back to the old Philly Spectrum days. He's like, you got to be shitting me. I'm like, no. He's like, I wrestled in the Philly Spectrum. He's like, I'd like to see this thing when I get there. I'm like, yeah, you'll know. I checked it because there was a couple of old videos from back WWE had on their archives from the Philly Spectrum days, and had this little knob on the top of the posts. Looks like how bolts have a nut.
Yeah.
Well, the posts have like a knob that's similar to the nut. It's like a bulb. Anyway, and they had this specific fin that went down the side of the post. This really unique fin. And I ended up finding it. So anyway, we get to the venue. I get in there. He goes, puts the stuff down, and we both walk into the gym, and he has this little merch bag with him. He stands there and he just drops the bag and stares at the ring for a minute. And then he leaves the bag on the floor and walks up to the ring and puts his hand on it. And he's just like, I can't believe this thing is still alive. I'm like, and I asked him, like, you know this ring? He's like, yeah. It was a lot bigger last time I saw it. I'm like, you mean higher up? He's like, yeah. Someone converted it. Someone bought it and cut it down. I guess it used to be a boxing ring that someone converted into a wrestling ring.
Wow.
And it's like a 2 foot off the floor thing. And it's a very small studio style ring. But anyway, he got in that thing. He's like, this thing should not be still being used. And he looks at me and goes, I'm not bumping tonight. I was like, I don't blame you. The thing was stiff as shit. Oh, we called it Old Bertha. She was good old Bertha. She survived everything. She's still being used today. EWA owns it in Southern Maine.
Nice. See the heritage, the history. It's all still there.
The fact that
I
it
mean,
still works is
and,
crazy.
and now you do wrestle now. Oh, you have wrestled. Like you had a few. What was it like last year or the end of the year before with BRG and Let's Wrestle? You did the steel cage match.
Oh yeah.
You were Let's
Well,
Wrestle champion for a while, weren't you?
yeah. So what had happened was me and him did an angle, and I was the one that gave Brett his quote unquote like break in Maine wrestling. Back in the day when I first met Brett, he was him and Malik were doing a tag for Showcase, and before that, he would did this like rich prep kid gimmick, and it would wear a suit and like a dress shirt with a tie, and had his long tights, and he was Todd Harris, and he the Harris Country Club title, and he'd come out, and it's like his own little belt. He's like a little preppy kid gimmick, and then he had
Yeah.
Malik as his tag partner down the line. Anyway, I gave them both their like break into Maine wrestling. I was bringing up to IWE shows, and so that's where it started. But then that's where he found his footing because he ended up leaving Showcase and was just coming and doing his own thing. And
Yeah,
he was,
after that, like I said, when I first saw when I went into 2017-18 era of wrestling, he was actually world champion of NCW. Like, and he was starting to find his space. The people hated him. They would be chanting Bieber. They would be,
yeah,
criticizing because he was small. But he knew how to get behind people's. He knew how to
yeah,
get under their skin so good.
he
And these
did.
fans would get so mad. But he would have his, Connecticut friends come in and kind of cheer him on, and he would have that little preppy kind of thing. But he was someone that was like, wow, this kid's actually doing something really cool because he didn't look like a regular wrestler. Wasn't big statured. When I
Right.
tried to get into wrestling in 2001, they told me that I wouldn't be a wrestler. I'd be like maybe a commentator, maybe a manager, something. They weren't looking for little people. They weren't looking for people that were 5'8", 5'9". They were looking for 6'4", 300
Big guys.
pound people. They wanted
Those were big guys. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
guy said.
Well, with Brett, when he came up for me, he was smaller than he was now. Obviously, he was like full, super skinny little kid. Like he literally put on the weight, got bigger, and when I sold the company, the company kept using him and Malik, and eventually he broke off on his own. Randy started using him for Let's Wrestle, which took over the old Limitless Orono building, the American Legion Hall. And he started using them there, and that's where Brett kind of found his footing as himself and started running with the proverbial ball, so to speak. Fast forward to when you're talking about the Let's Wrestle title match series that we had. He beat me in the first match, and then the second match, I beat him. So the big blow off was supposed to lead up into the cage. Well, it was supposed to be in Brewer. That's what it was supposed to be, but this ended up being the demise of the Brewer building is because they ended up closing it at the end of the year.
The big indoor yard sale, right?
Yeah, Vacation Land had it first, and then they were pseudo burning the building because they owed the guy who ran the building money. And around the time I blew out my quad, the guy who ran the building knew who I was just from wrestling for so many years. And Randy had pitched this idea of doing a fundraiser for me because I was laid up for 6 to 8 months. Can't do nothing because I tore my quad completely off my kneecap. So they did a fundraiser for me, and he said, "I'm going to donate the building." He's like, "Just whatever proceeds go to you because you need it," and I appreciate it. Like I remember even the merch, like the girls that were selling all the food at the venue, they had like a little tip jar, and they gave me their tips. And I was like, "I don't want this. Like I didn't want it," and they were like, "No, you need it. You can't work for 6 to 8 months." So that's how the foot in the door came out, was with the fundraiser, because Randy ended up packing in like 200 people in there, which is bigger than Vacation Land was drawing. And so I told Randy, I was like, "You should pitch about coming back here just on your own." And he did. He pitched it, and the owner actually let him leave his chairs there. He got to leave all of his stuff there and come back every month and run a wrestling show. Well, end of the year came. We're trying to get to the big blow off here. The whole point was this show beforehand, whereas this is December.
I
And
think I
me and
that.
is it the talent I tagged with Ethan, the announcer?
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
that's one in you tag. Yes.
Well, that was supposed to be the thing because the show before that, a couple shows before that, I won the belt, and I was hurt. And my son, who he's like almost 18 years old, he was at ringside and he was coming to check on me because I was hurt. and he went to grab my son. He was like a 17-year-old kid. And Ethan was like, just going to be like a man about it. Hey, you can't be touching him. He's a kid. You can't do that. And then Brett hit him with the super kick and knocked him out. So we did the story of building up Ethan to stand up for himself, to stand up against the bully, Brett, because Brett was being a bully. And that was the big matchup, was me and Ethan against Brett and a mystery partner, which ended up being, was it LSG? Is that am I saying that right? Yeah. So it was good. And they made him look like $1 million. They made Ethan look like $1 million. Like, and Ethan came and trained too. He did train with me. We actually went to the dojo, like all the little training vignettes. Those were real days of training. He was there like every week, like once a week, trying to get himself, because he trained with me previously. Ethan originally wanted to be a wrestler. He ended up becoming like the sound guy for IWE for many a year. And he wanted to be a wrestler, and he was training, and he would train a lot, and then he wouldn't train a lot, and then he would stop training for a bit, and then he trained a lot, and he just no consistency. Well, this was his chance to have like his first full-fledged matchup. Me and him had an interaction during the road, during the pandemic time, where I was like, I knew he knew enough, and I was in the midst of the streak, and I'd always pick on him in my promos during the streak, and I was like, I pitched it to Randy one time. I was like, we should have Ethan grow some balls, and almost beat me during the streak, and that's when we did that spot. So I was like, this was coming up circle. So I was like, oh, we had that. Now I'm bringing him full circle, and he has this full-fledged match, and he did real good, and they made him look great.
Well, it was, and I remember talking to him too. I had him on the show, and we talked about that match and stuff, and just what it meant to him, and just, and he shined in that, because I could see him glowing, because not only was it like, so it was a big deal for him, because he was working up to it. It was almost like it gave me like a Rocky feel, like here comes this underdog training.
That was literally how I pitched it. Yeah, the Rocky thing. That's literally the pitch I did for when I pitched it to Randy. The whole idea, and I'm happy it paid off for him.
He's not the most much. He's not the most thing, but he went full on like Ultimate Warrior in that ring, and it was great to see. He shook the ropes. He did. He went nuts. It was fun.
It was fun, and everybody got into. He got a hot pop, man. People were cheering for him.
That was a legitimate pop too. People were happy for that.
They were happy. He was whooping some ass, and then Brett took the stunner like $1 million. He was flying through the air with feet flailing. It was great. So the big blow off was obviously they beat Ethan. I'm pissed, and there's got to be a winner. Brett's beat me. I beat him. Rubber match. Let's do it in a cage. Well, it was supposed to be in Brewer, but the venue closed. If we'd done that in Brewer, I guarantee you we would pack that fucking place with like 500 people.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, because it was hot. And we were worried because we're going to Fairfield because it's the only other venue available and big enough to do it because it's a cage. And it was Larry Huntley's cage, which used to be mine when I owned IWE, but I sold IWE and they eventually sold all the pieces to it. But anyway, I was talking to Brett. I'm like, well, if they travel, that means this story was worth it, because we were worried that no one was going to travel to Fairfield. Because from Brewer to Fairfield, it's about, if you take 395 the whole way, probably about 45 minutes. So I was like,
yeah, I mean, people that like I said, that show took us I think it felt like 4.5, 5 hour drive to get out to the show that you were Egg show. I didn't get out to the Fairfield show, but I did get to that one. Yeah. And it was totally, like I said, different part of Maine, long drive, but an easy drive. There was no traffic or anything. It got a lot colder as we kept going. The weather changed, started snowing.
Yeah, that's good old. That's why I told you, Maine weather. It's very bipolar up here, literally and figuratively. Like the Maine weather is by 1 minute it's hot, next minute it's below 0 temperatures and snowing. Like it's so weird. It could be sunny outside and then have a full torrential downpour while still being sunny outside. It's so weird. But that's why I said Maine, like wintertime wrestling in Maine is the best time because you have the biggest houses you should get, but you risk the blizzards. So like when we were doing that, that was the next quick thing too, because I think the cage match we did was in a January.
January stuff.
Yeah, so we're like this will be the best draw time wise for it, but the worst time when it comes to like weather and if people would travel from that more Brewer venue where we built this story up to Fairfield. Plus, we did know there was wrestling fans in Fairfield too, so we've run there before, but it was a big risk, and I'm happy to get out.
Not only the Yarmouth people be traveling to the fair, like to the other, like the Limitless people don't travel all the time to Let's. Usually get the local people in the area.
Right. Well, that was the thing too. Some Limitless people, like some Limitless fans, traveled up for that cage match show in Fairfield, which I'm impressed. And a good chunk of the Brewer people did travel. Not as much as I was hoping, but a good chunk of them did. We probably had 250 in there, and it was a gymnasium. It was in high ceilings. Good. It was good enough. The other concern we had the day of the show with me and Brett, because this was Brett's first cage match, not mine. I've had like over a dozen. But
well, you own the cage. I mean, of course,
my concern was the problem is when you put the cage up, it takes a good chunk of time. It's in 4 pieces, and you got to connect each piece. So you can only do 2 sides at a time. So you put the one piece on, you bring the other piece on, then you connect it, and then you bring another piece on, and then you connect that one. And then you connect them. Once you've all connected them all, then you cinch them all in, make sure they're tight and they're snug so they won't fall off the ring.
So it's not like the TV. You don't have it hanging over the ring for the whole show until the main event.
No, it's up against the back wall. And then you just all you got to do is slide it. So you lift it. You have it standing up against the back wall. And then you have a group of dudes, usually about 10 of you. So this way you have 4 to carry it, each piece. That's 8 guys. And then 2 to tighten everything on. And so we would have to walk it through the people to the one side of the ring and then slide the next piece up. So literally it was standing up. So all you do is walk it to where you got to go. It made it easier. No one got hurt. And fans even started helping. That's how cool it was. Like fans were like, we're going to help. They're holding it up. Like, no, go ahead, tighten it. Like they wanted to see the match. So, but the concern is usually it takes about 20 minutes to do that, if not more. So in that time frame, because you've already had an intermission, you've already had 6 other matches and an intermission already. Now you're at another intermission. Are people going to stay? And everybody stayed. Me and Brett were worried. We're like, people are going to fucking leave. We're going to leave. And we go out there. Everybody's still there. We're like, oh, yeah, here we go. And then the next part was, like I said, it was Brett's first cage match. But what made me feel good is we're in Gorilla right before we go out. He's like, it's my first cage match, but I'm happy I'm doing it with you. And that made me feel good. He's like, and he hugged me. And I know this was coming like a full circle for him because, like, when he started, he was, like I said, Todd Harris, little skinny kid. And I gave him this little break in Maine. And then it made me feel like the old dad. It made me feel like the old dad of Maine wrestling at that point. I was like, oh, all right, let's beat my ass. Let's go. So he went out there and he was the heel. It was real good. If you get the match is online too. I think it's on the Limitless YouTube page.
Yep.
And it was really good if you ever get a chance to watch it. Yeah, it's great.
No, it is. It is a good match. Like I said, I mean, he has come closer. He's all the way, he's MLW contract. Like, he's made it to where he wants to be right now. Another one. And that's the cool thing, you're saying about all this old footage that you have and that's getting uploaded, is that you can see a lot of these people's arcs of when they started, and then where they are now in the industry. And some of it's just shocking, I mean, like even Limitless itself and Maine itself, you guys had MJF up there. Now he's, world television star. But at one point he was sitting as Limitless champion. Back in the time, the Limitless wasn't even as big as it is now.
Right. Well, the funny part is everybody like back in the day used to talk about the Limitless curse. I don't know if you heard about that. You ever heard about the Limitless curse?
Yes. I mean, that title, anybody that had that title went somewhere at some point.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Well, that's the thing too. Back, the curse kept going. I think up until when Alec Price had it, he actually got a couple tryouts.
He got a couple tryouts. He just became GCW Tag Team Champion.
So he can still be signed. But I'm saying usually right around the time whenever a person got that title, they shortly thereafter got signed. The irony was we thought the curse was going to keep going, but it actually ended with Alec Price, kind of in a good way. But not really. But like, I'm happy. I wish he'd gotten signed, but he had gotten a couple tryouts.
Yeah, it has. But no, it's crazy because it is. Your first time with MJF, he went, then AG, and then
Nova and Garcia both went too.
Garcia got signed, but when the one before Garcia was he got signed almost like when Casanova won in the Vacation Land Cup. It was like not very far long after.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Like literally, right after these guys won the belt, they were going
He
somewhere.
all got picked up, and they were like, "Okay, you're coming with us. Bye."
Well, that's what I'm saying. At one point, we thought it was going to happen to Alec Price because he was getting right after he won the belt. He was getting a
Yeah,
tryout,
that's right.
and we're like, "Shit, it's going to happen again." Like it's
Even if
cool,
they're not
but not.
even if the people that aren't signed, they've all worked it. Like,
Yeah.
Big B has worked other big promotions.
Oh yeah,
You
like he was
have
in Ring of Honor or something, right? Too, right?
He's contracted to fight in Japan at times. So
Mm.
everybody's made it somewhere. And then, you got Channing Thomas now just winning it again, which is still
Oh,
a shit.
I wasn't at that show, but I watched it on the YouTube, and I just felt the air sink out of the room when he won the belt back. I was like, "Oh, these people are fucking pissed." Like you
I
just
was
feel the
glad I
air.
watched. I was bummed that I couldn't go to the show. I had sponsored that match and I wanted to be there. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew something special was going to happen. The first match was great. The storytelling is great. Booth's rise was awesome. Just everything
Oh,
about
yeah,
it.
a great story, and no one saw the swerve, and the fact
No,
that
and
the swerve
especially out of
happened.
someone that's been. I've seen him play heel and other promotions, but he's always just been the heart of living. People have loved that guy,
Well,
and
him
you can
and
tell. I think they got more mad at that night than the night that BRG and Shannon Thomas pretended to come out with his music when that first show from the pandemic came back and they
yeah,
teased his song. That fans were booing that night so bad. But no, there was a lot of heat in that room. I actually talked to Sid. He said it was hot in there.
yeah, people were pissed, like full red hot heat, which that could be good, but it also could be bad. We won't know until next month, obviously. But like, I just watched it. I was like, ooh, and I saw people getting up, grabbing their shit all pissed, and walking toward the door. I'm like, ooh, that's heat. That's some heat. Like, they're mad.
You know what the good thing is? Wrestling fans
Pissing their
forget
Cheerios.
they forget the next day. How many people say they're going to quit watching WWE
Oh,
and
and
then
they
next
watch it. They watch it. Yeah. I'm just.
Exactly.
I just saw. I was like, they're
That
pissed.
is true. People were mad. People were legitimately mad. I saw, I had friends that obviously went to both of me, and they were like, "Yeah, people are fucking heated over here. People are like ready to just start rioting. They're
And
not
you're at home
happy."
going, this is bullshit. You were supposed to be there. You're like, this is bullshit. I should have been there.
And I would have been cheering. I like Channing Thomas. I'm glad he won.
I like Shannon Thomas too. I've been there since I've seen him come from
He's another one. Yes,
a grasshopper, so to speak. I seen him when he first started. So yeah,
Timmy Thunder.
yes, Timmy Thunder.
Timmy, so he's never going to lose Timmy Thunder. I'm sorry. He can try to bury it as deep as he can, but it's always going to resurface a little bit.
Many times seeing him and Carlos with the Dan Terrys and the Brandino Davises and the Tim Lennoxes back in the day. Those were the
Yeah, well,
days.
wrestling.
Huh?
I think Dan Terry retired a couple of years ago, but I've seen Tim Lennox on and off.
Yeah, I think with him, I know he had a lot of family stuff going on, like someone was ill or something, I think, in his family. I don't know. Don't quote me. It's not my business. Brandino, we already know because with him, it was his kidney failure, but now he's got a replacement kidney and he's going to be at a special guest referee at Ring Wars 2. Like, it's his first thing in like 3 years in the ring.
That's great, though. I know that's another story I've seen.
He said he's feeling great.
It's good to see good things happen to good people.
He said he's feeling good and he feels like he can do this. I said, "You sure you want to do this?" He's like, "Yeah, I can do this." I said, "All right." I said, "It's a refereeing. He's not wrestling, but it still takes a lot to run around and referee. It's for 10 minutes. You know what I mean?" So he said he's been putting on weight and he feels good. So I trust him. I tagged with him for years, so I trust his word. If he didn't feel like doing it, he would tell me so. And he was the one that hit me up too. So I mean, if he's feeling great, let's give it a go. Maybe this is a test for him too. Bless him. So maybe this is
the ref. It's not going to be overexertion. You'll have just that right kind of level of physicality where you got to jump down, do slides, get down here and there, but you're not taking bump after bump or jumping ropes and doing all of that.
Yeah. So if he feels great after this, maybe the next step for him is getting back in there. So I'm happy to at least give him the outlet, and like I said, Ring Wars is for everybody. It's for every promotion. The thing is with Ring Wars, I only do 4 promotions because that gets a little monotonous after that because you only get 6 or 7 matches. I don't want to have WrestleMania and have 12 matches with
Yeah,
8.
and you'll become a 2-3 day spectacle with like
Yeah.
12
Yeah.
promotions. You'd have
No,
to
I
practice.
got a time limit on my show because I'm doing it at the place I'm doing it at, the Somerset Poorhouse. I DJ there. It's part of my job every week. I'm there every weekend. They give me a deal in the room, and it's a limited seating event. You can only fit like 120 seats in there, and then it's standing room only. There's a bar and a kitchen in the room, so like you never have to leave the room. Everything's right there, unless you're going to the bathroom or going outside to smoke. So like everything's in the room. It's a nice intimate setting. And that's why I'm like, we got to do it while the kitchen's open so everybody can get food. And then right after our show ends at 9, a band starts in the other room next to us. So like just like a little after party. So it's kind of fun. It's a fun time. Yeah, people like it. So good food and drinks are great. And like I said, come to the wrestling. And then if you're there to party, you can have the after party. The wrestlers love it because they go right next door and have a beer. You know, so they're like, oh, great.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're going to party. Yeah, but again, you're still right in the same room, basically. Just walk next door or walk to the next room.
Yeah, it's literally right around the corner on the other side of the wall. There's 2 rooms. One's the main room to the main restaurant and like bar and stage area. And then the other one's the event room, which is where we're in. So a lot of the wrestlers love it because they'll just go right next door and eat and watch.
Plus, I mean, that's the one thing I've noticed about Maine. There's not a lot of restaurants that even serve food at 9.
Yeah, no, they stop food at 9 there, sadly. But if you get your food in,
I could stop at like 7. Almost like I remember the first time we spent the night. All I could find was just gas station food. It's almost like you could drive 2 hours into Portland if you want, but maybe the McDonald's is open. I'm like,
yeah. Well, that's the thing because a lot of the Denny's is up here either closed down like completely, or they close by 9, and those are the 24-hour stops. The Dice Hearts, which is further up, which is the area I'm in, where you're like the Brewer area and Bangor area. They used to be 24 hours, but they also now close at like 9, 10 o'clock, so you can't get food there either.
Where's
so
all like the 1 a.m. Chinese restaurants and stuff? You guys don't got that up there?
No, the latest thing up here, man, is Domino's, and most of those they'll take orders up till 2 o'clock. If you don't have your order by 2 o'clock, you're out of luck. But it's all pick up.
You have to live near that Domino's. You can't be in like 3 hours out of their region.
You're right. You have to be within like a half an hour of the Domino's, like driving distance, I think, or something like that. I don't know how the corporate stuff works, but that's about it.
Always brings me to Freeport. Freeport isn't bad, but everything closes like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
Well,
lights out.
That's why it's weird because where the Ring Road show is, it's right off the Newport exit on the interstate. It's exit 157. It's literally 60 seconds off the exit. But off that exit there's a new Taco Bell that took over an old Tim Hortons building, and the Taco Bell's open till 2 a.m. I'm like, what? That's so random. Taco Bell in the middle of nowhere, open till 2 a.m. So random, like so random. I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'd feel about eating late night tacos from a Taco Bell, but I guess if you're hungry, it don't matter. It's either that or gas station food. So
there is, and even that, the gas station might not be open.
Up here, there's a lot of 24-hour gas stations. I'll give you that. Between Irving's and Shell, or Cumberland, depending on the area, they're all open late.
But I always have trouble finding something coming back. Going up. I mean, yes, there's one right. Like if I go to Yarmouth, it's not too bad. But going up, there's actually more going up north. The further north I go, the more
Correct.
stuff I find.
Yeah, that's weird. It's so weird.
There's only like 1 or 2 in between until I get into Mass. So if like we don't get gas or we forget and we get on the highway, then we get stuck, and then we got to drive through New Hampshire, and we're gonna get through all these other places.
Oh, and then they hit you all the different tolls when you get off and get on.
Yeah,
that's a lot. I went out of state one time like a year ago, and I was like, Jesus, tolls went up. Jesus Christ. I mean, they hit you with everything too. They'll hit you every time.
Try going to like Jersey through New York, and it's like 3 times the amount of tolls, and the cost is 3 times as much.
I remember a story from back in the day from the guys. I used to book a lot of the House of Glory guys back in the day, like Alex Mason, Mark Quinn, his brother, and then Alex Lee Ray, Good Hank Flanders. There'd be a whole carload of them that came up, and they used to tell me the horror stories of just tolls going up here. And I would always feel like, whose car is who drove this person? I'd throw them like an extra $20. I'm like, here. But like, I'm like, you're not getting more than that. Like, I get it. It's part of wrestling. You got to travel. But I felt bad because they'd be like, oh, I got to pay all the tolls up, tolls back, but here's $20 extra. Like, get off my.
I'll tell you, don't be like, now the tolls are different. There's not a lot of people that work tolls. There's not places to put money. A lot of it, they just take a picture. And I just kept going and just kept going, and I forgot all about these tolls. But all of a sudden, I had to like
Oh, no.
I, and this was back in 21. Now let me put a little mindset of it. Back in 21, in 2020, like I said, at 19, 18, 19, I got really into wrestling, got really into it. 2020 hit, pandemic shut me down, got into shows like The Road, got really back into wrestling. When 21 hit, I went everywhere. I went up to Maine all the time, went to Jersey like 6 times that year. I went to a few. I went to Camp Leapfrog, IWTV 100. I went to what was it? Wrestler's Laboratory. I went to We Are Wrestling. Then I ended up going to I went up to GCW, and then I went to the XPW Return.
Oh, damn.
All that 1 year. And I forgot all about the toll system. So when I came to go and renew my license the next year, it was a hefty ass fine, and they weren't giving it until I paid it back.
Damn. What was the XPW return show like? I know because when I was younger, I used to love watching XPW. So it was not everybody's cup of tea, but it was mine.
I think they shouldn't have done it in New York because New York has a heavy stated commission with no blood, and they bring out people like Schlack, and as soon as Schlack bled in the first minute, the commissioner shut the match down.
Damn.
But as overall, it was a good wrestling show. It had wrestling. You had Brian Cage on it. It had, other known wrestlers. They didn't really do their deathmatch stuff until they went out back to LA.
Mm-hmm.
So they kept it more just a very high-end indie wrestling show. They had Vincent on there from with the Ring of Honor, and they brought other people, like I said, in there. But they had Schlack, and you were looking forward to it, and somebody throws a chair at him, the dude starts bleeding, and the commission, like I said, just comes right in.
To him, that's normal. It's like every day for his matches.
Rob Black was there. They had the original commentator there. He was chilling. It was a nice time. We got the VIP, got to go in like half an hour early, meet all the wrestlers, take photos, do all your thing.
Yeah.
There was something to do. It was something interesting. Like I said, though, I did a lot of traveling that year. Just I never been to the ballroom, never seen GCW. Went out to the Moxley versus Nick Cage match for that, and that was that was a long ride. But wow, what a passion for wrestling! You
traveled quite a bit.
But there's something about GCW passion. It's just insane. Glass flying, blood going everywhere. People just having a great time. You don't catch that long. Because it's not kids. It's not a kids show. It's
no, definitely not. Definitely not.
It's a totally different wrestling crowd. You got to get some shows that are fully passionate, but it's also family passion. Kids are going crazy. Kids are booing the heel, and that's fine too. Every show's kind of different, but like the GCW passion, like I said, it's a grown as adults is really into what they're doing in the characters and the matches. It's cool to see. But yeah, those tolls will get you. Don't always make sure that like when you get back, go to wherever your thing is. You can pay right away because the fees they add up like really quick.
Yeah, that goes up every month.
Double, triple, quadruple the amount.
Yeah, it goes up every month. You don't pay it from the date it was issued.
Renewal, which was like almost a year later, and I'm just like, I wasn't getting mail. They weren't sending me letters. I didn't know that I owed it.
Damn.
Normally, I get the pay-by-plate letters.
Yeah, the little note letters. Yeah.
And so Maine sends them to me. I always get the Maine ones. They send them a couple of days later, Maine and New Hampshire. But for some reason,
they're good about it. They're good.
And I was just like, Jesus Christ, because I can't go asking people for toll money, a year later. And B, I ain't gonna ask them for the fee money because it ain't their fault. I didn't know about it.
Right.
But it was up there. It was kind of ridiculous. I was like, God, do I even want my license anymore? Do I need it?
Sadly, to go to wrestling, you do. You got to travel, man. It's a lot of traveling. Well, you just told us all the traveling you just did. So.
Well, I enjoy it though. I enjoy getting out. Now, granted, there's shows that I can walk to. There's shows in the area that I can literally walk to in the same town that they run. Chaotic runs in my town once every couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
There's shows that are 10 minutes away, 20 minutes away. Then the shows that I love that are like 3, 4 hours away. I
Yeah.
like to mix
See,
it up.
I remember because I used to work for NWA on Fire back in the day, and they used to run in the Mexico Rumford area. And from where I live, it's 3 hours away, just to one way, and you're still in the state. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like it was ridiculous. And mind you, it'd be huge draws. It'd be good. It'd be fun and be a huge draw. But I'm like, I'm going 3 hours one fucking way, and I'm still in a state, and then 3 hours back. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Well, see, now I'm a little bit older, and with the, I have the kids older, and I got the wife, and I got my wife into a lot of the indie wrestling. So if I do a show that's out there, I see the show that's out there, I try to just incorporate, hey, how would you like to go away for the weekend? Or how would you like to go stay in a hotel somewhere? And get the whole family just to go out. Even if they don't go to the show, I'll go to the show. We'll stay in a hotel. This way I don't got to travel the 3 hours and then just sit down and then travel the 3 hours right back.
That's
Because
the
that's
rough
just
part. Yeah.
me. I don't mind the getting there.
Yeah, because the
But
getting there,
doing it
you're
all,
excited. You're like, you're ready for when you get there. It's afterwards, you're
I
like, oh, I'm
remember
tired.
well, that's another promotion we went to. I forgot. I remember the night we were doing something and we never really, we didn't really travel a lot. I was with, I had my old podcast partner, and we didn't really travel a lot prior to this. We were doing local wrestling, but we just we wanted to see this IWTV 100. I had sponsored something with Camp Leapfrog with Sidney Bacabella, and he was, he came on the show and did an interview, and so we wanted to see that. It was a double-header show. And me being the crazy wrestling fan, I found that VXS was running the night before, not too far away out of Jersey. So I said, you know what? Let's do it all. So we left like Friday afternoon. I didn't, I see the calculation. I'm like, cool. I never think about traffic.
Oh,
So
you rush hour traffic, didn't you?
we don't have time to stop anywhere. So we get right to the venue. The show's already began. Literally just went right to the venue from Mass. Show's great. After the show now, we need to find a place to stay. And now I see my gas tanks low. Now, they have a different system in Jersey. You can't fill your own gas. So if the gas place is closed, which it was, you're not filling your gas. So we had to drive into Pennsylvania, fill the tank, come back into Jersey and find a place. By the time we did, it was like some motel. The guy was like, 150, but we'll take 100 from you. And the room was just a smokestack. It smelled like cigarettes and burned holes everywhere. But it was warmer inside than it was out, and it was fine. Next day, you just woke up and just went breakfast and went to wrestling, went home. But yeah, that was the opposite in Jersey. The gas stations were weird like that. So like you had to I didn't know that. And good thing we made it into Pennsylvania. I would have been stranded out there.
Yeah. See, I knew that kind of because I was born in Jersey originally. So I kind of knew some of that. I was like, oh, yeah. What you said, I was like, oh, you went straight to when you said you had a low gas tank, I was like, shows usually get out between 10 and 11 o'clock. So, yeah. Good luck.
I'm thinking, okay, cool. We're going to fill up the tank. We run right in there. I'm like, tell my friend, hey, hop out. He's like, yo, the tank ain't working. Oh, I get okay. Gas station must be broken. Let's go to the next one. Go to the next one. Same thing. So we got a problem here. None of these are working. And then he Googles this shit. Like, they don't allow this shit in here. I'm like, well, we better find something in Pennsylvania. Luckily, we were right near the edge,
Yeah, you just hopped over borderline real quick.
over the borderline. Something was open, but it's totally opposite of what like I said. Maine, they're open 24 hours. If not inside, at least outside, the pumps are going.
That's because we're so spread out up here. Like, even if like a gas station's closed and the lights off, the pumps will still be on. So you can just put your card in and do that. Because sometimes, like away, especially if you go up north to like Aroostook County area, shit's real spread out. So like you could literally like if you don't get gas at certain points. Like I remember traveling to a show in Fort Kent from where I live now, and it's a haul. And if you take the back way, it's quicker. But the back way, there's very few gas stations. So it's like
you don't fill your tank.
yeah. So you literally have to fill your tank right after you get off the interstate to take this back way because you might not get something, like, and the same thing once you get to Fort Kent, fill up once you get there before you get to the venue because once you leave there, you're going to need that gas to get you all the way back because you might not find anything that's open. And even if you do, you don't know if the pumps are going to work because sometimes these private places, like little mom and pop gas stations in the middle of nowhere, they'll turn the pumps off.
So
And then when you're like, oh, well, you're
out in
in
Maine,
Timbuktu.
and then you're out in the middle of Maine, phone not working, bears are
Oh,
hungry. Goodbye. We'll see
You're
you.
hungry. There's no phone service. It's straight up like right out of Wrong Way, number 4, 5, whatever movie. you're like this is not.
Start having eye. People start fucking coming out of the woodwork.
And if it's in the wintertime, it's even worse. So you're like, great, because if you have no gas, you can't run your car, right? So your heater ain't gonna be running.
Cold. Get about that. It's cold.
It's gonna be freezing your ass off.
Degrees.
Yep, it was literally like -9 yesterday in the morning. Something like today, this morning, -9, like at 6 o'clock this morning, or something like yesterday, something like that. It was cold. It was pretty cold. I'm like, great. So I was hearing it. Someone told me, I think it was the Donkey Boy Bandit told me today that the Hogan Road, which is the Bangor location of a McDonald's, you couldn't get drinks because their water lines were frozen
Oh wow.
at a McDonald's in the middle of Bangor.
I think they're a major corporation. They would just have everything that.
Well, I'm sure they got someone come in to thaw it out, but they literally put out a thing like saying you can order food, but we can't give you any we can't give you any beverages because the soda lines were frozen throughout the entire building.
I was just ordering fries, no salt.
Yeah, I was say, yeah, well, how you washing your dishes then? Like,
Good question too. That's another good question. I didn't even think about the sanitary aspect of how people washing hands and so forth.
yeah, so I'm like, how you do? Like, I mean, yeah, you can wear gloves, but how do you wash the dishes? Unless they didn't wash dishes and have a stockpile of them, and then I could hate to be the guy that comes in mid shift, stack of dishes there, have to wash the. Well, we got the plumber here to thaw off the lines. You have to wash these dishes though for morning and for lunch. I hate my life. I'd be like, I quit.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go join one of them pro wrestling federations.
Yeah, jeez, yeah. He'll be paying in at that point. When you first start out, you're paying in. You ain't making no money when you first start out. You're hurting money for that first little while.
That's with anything. But I mean, yeah, we've gone a little over time. That's fine though. It's been a great conversation. Honestly, you've been a great guest. I really do appreciate it. So you said you're wrestling. The next time people can see you wrestling is going to be MPW. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's 4 shows coming up. I'll go over all of them. We have MPW this Friday, like you said, you're going to that one, right? MPW Friday. That's in Old Town, Maine. You can Maine Marine Wrestling on Facebook. Get tickets for that if you want. And I'll be on that show. I'm in I think a 6-man tag. I think it's me and my royal court because I'm the king of New England. It's me, Alexander Lee, and Black Rose versus Wesley Pipes, Blade Bandit, and Zane Valentine. A 6-man tag.
Nice.
The very next night, I'm in that's the Saturday show. That's MEW in Franklin, Maine, and the Franklin Vets Club. That's Main Event Wrestling on Facebook for tickets for that. I'm defending the MEW championship against Big Country Jason Maverick on that show.
It'll be a big fight.
Yep. The following week on the 1st, we have Ring of Wars 2. It's giant size. This is for the 50-50 raffle. This giant size poster.
Nice.
On the show. Girls match. Bunch of 7 bouts in total.
I love the retro feel. It looks like WrestleMania too, honestly.
Yeah, well, a lot of our themes for Ring Wars are old school wrestling throwbacks. Like Ring Wars 3, I'll give you like a hint. It's very Starcade-ish. Someone told me. Yeah, I think Ring Wars 4 is going to be like a throwback to like a '90s Saved by the Bell theme. But anyway, we haven't gotten that far yet. But Ring Wars 2, that's in Palmyra, Maine, at the Somerset Poorhouse. That's I'm not wrestling because I'm hosting the event. On Ring Wars, I try not to wrestle. I try to keep myself as like an alternate. If someone gets hurt or sick from a previous show, I can cover that spot.
What promotion would you stand in for though?
Well, that's the problem. So if I do that, I do it as like there's certain people that are free agents. I call them free agents, just like in like football or basketball, baseball free agents. because they're so seasoned or so lucrative. So with me, I work for every promotion. I consider myself a free agent, so I'm not for anybody. Same thing like with Tony Atlas, where he's on the show. He's a Hall of Famer, and I don't think it's very fair for him to be on someone's team. So he's like a free agent. So we win, we get a medallion, but it doesn't go to anybody. With anything like that, I would do that. With any big name or anybody like that, they're free agents. So. But that's like I said, that's Saturday, the 1st of February, Palmyra, Maine, Somerset Poorhouse. I will be there. I'll be hosting the event. There's 7 bouts, Tony Atlas, girls match, so much more. It's gonna be a great show. There's only like a handful of tickets left. There's about 18 tickets left, and then it's standing room only. So because it's a limited space.
We're gonna talk after this show.
Yeah, he's like, all right, we'll get you. And then the last, and the DVD, talk tickets and DVD. Then the last show I'll put over because I got to do it because, like I said, there's 4 shows. The day after Ring Wars on the 2nd of February, it's a special matinee show in the afternoon there, much like the last show they did. But this is Let's Wrestle. It's in Milford, Maine, at the Town Hall. You can go to limitlesswrestling.com. You should have tickets on sale there. And that's also a limited seating venue. It's even less space than my venue. That one's only got 100 tickets total that they can sell. And that's with the ring in there. It's a tight squeeze in there. Like it's a tight squeeze. This is like the 3rd wrestling show ever to be in that venue, just because you can only put 100 seats in there. So it's hard, but it's a great show. And I heard that's like over 80% sold out already for that show because it's only 100 seats, so you can sell them out.
Let's Wrestle hasn't been around in a minute. It's been kind of on hiatus. So I think,
since the titles got unified. With the BRG Channing match, and now it's happening again because at this show on the 2nd, it's me and because I took over for Mike McCarthy, who is not in New England anymore. I took over and I tag with Alexander Lee. We're the Vets Club, and we're tagging against the Classic Core, which is Calvin Strange and Dave Dyer, and it's a tag team title unification match. We're the Let's Wrestle tag champs, and we're facing MEW's tag team champions, and it's title for title. So a title is going to change hands no matter what.
Well, that's going to be wild.
Titles are getting merged. Yeah, so we're about to see it happen again. Titles are getting merged. So Let's Wrestle. It's kind of on the back burner, but like it's because
at one point Randy Carver didn't want any titles. So
well, he only has the one for Limitless, if you think about it. So
but that didn't even happen right away. That wasn't like first show. Here's a title.
I understand the ideology of it because I did the same thing with Ring Wars because what it is, the wrestlers need to focus on the match, not the title. The match is for the fans. You know what I mean? If people pay their hard-earned money to watch the show, and I think some wrestlers have a hard time. Everybody has aspirations, and I understand that in wrestling. But like your focus should be on your match because if your match is great, and then people are going to be entertained, and on top of that, like people are going to see that other promotions, people from across, not just fan bases, but promotions and other companies will see it.
He was one of the more colorful WWF wrestlers, right? He never won a world title in WWF. In WCW, maybe the NWA, but not WWF. But he's still recognized today as one of top wrestlers.
Great analogy.
Champion Gold is just an accessory. You could be someone that works an opponent over. You could be a great heel. You could be a great face. You can be somebody, but it doesn't always have to be about wearing that belt or being the top guy. Because it takes more than just a champion to make a whole promotion, to make a whole show. You need everybody in their match to put up and put on.
Right. I think that's the thing is people I understand the ideology of what Randy was going for. So that's why I did the same thing with Ring Wars. I wanted people to people to reach out and well, first off with Ring Wars too, you're not just there for yourself. You're representing a promotion. But there's also 4 promotions there and me, the host. So you have 5 people, 4 organizations and 1 competition watching your match. So your focus should be your match because if your match sucks, you're going to not only be embarrassing yourself, but the promotion you're representing. And
also,
3 other promotions are watching you. So if you suck, it's not going to look good for you.
If you do really good, you could get booked at all 4 promotions.
Exactly. That's the ideology. Like you're not just impressing me. Like I'm just the host of the competition, but there's 4 promotions there. You're representing one of them. So 3 other ones are watching you. So if you have a horrible showing, you might not get any bookings.
It's not a good showcase. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but if you do great, you get booked.
it has that reality feel. Like, people are like dancing with the stars. You got to perform well this match. People are watching. There's extra sets of eyes on you during this. Not
The
just
extra
fans,
pressure.
people that are actually might invest in you as a wrestler.
Exactly. It's a lot of pressure, and that makes them have to perform at a higher level, which is what I think needs to happen with professional wrestling. Because, like, I show it up to I leave it up to like Raw has been on Netflix now, right? This is like their third week. The first 2 weeks I thought were bangers. Now this week I was like, meh. I was like, oh, wait, like if you put something up high enough and you leave it up on that pedestal and you have it that high, it makes everybody compete that high. And if you don't have it, what's the point? They're not gonna push as hard. So I think that was my goal with this whole deal. Was I want to see if people could do it. I want to see if they could perform, because a lot of these guys that are on these Ring Wars shows are not guys that you would see at Limitless. But they're a lot of them. That's their goal. They want to
Well,
be.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, like Les Wrestler, for instance, that almost was like for a while, like the NXT of, Limitless. People would work that and they would be inspired and wish and want to get that Limitless debut.
No,
We saw a lot of people do it in the Rumble. People like Diego Alvarez, someone that was in Les Wrestling, he got his Limitless debut. What that meant to him was probably, that's an accomplishment, a feat. It's not easy. I remember when I interviewed PRG. I remember when I interviewed Channing Thomas. They both said the same thing. They were so happy and proud to just perform in Limitless when it got to that level and they were called, because it was something that they aspired to. They saw it on, whatever, IWTV, and it was at that level of wrestling that they wanted to be part of.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like I mean, I performed for Limitless and like Herman a couple times. Obviously, the Road. You said you watched the Road. I did. I had the streak. The streak, that was a big thing that happened during the Road until I lost the streak, which eventually I thought was crazy the way it all happened, and it just happened by coincidence. And I'd never been in Yarmouth, but that was like the cake topper. The goal was, I think, at the end of the streak where I lost to Ace. I think I was 24-0 at that point, and I lost to Ace, and it was like do or die for Ace. Like if I had beat Ace, I was going to get a shot at the Limitless title, and I never being in Yarmouth before in my life. But if and taking Ace's spot of all things, like that's crazy to think that if I beat him, that happened.
The Road really got me into, even not just so much into just Limitless, but got me into indie wrestling because it broke things down week by week. You had like 4 matches. You could analyze it. You could talk about them. You could watch the build up. Then you could recap them. Then you could preview them. And every week you could preview and recap a Road.
The stories too are great because you could actually develop them. Because with those tapings, there was a lot of matches, but we could do all the stuff in between matches when people were getting ready. That's when we did all the productional stuff, like promos and story stuff, and that's where I did all my stuff, like my promos, where I was picking on Ethan, and then eventually Ethan getting the balls to fight me. So it was cool. I mean, it looked like he was almost going to beat the streak, and then I killed him. But anyway, the point being is the build up for it. Like that was, if you want to watch that snippet, I believe you have to look up me versus Love Doug on the Limitless YouTube. And then at the end of it, because it was so short, it was like literally like 2-minute long with the spot with Ethan. It's right after I beat Love Doug, and it's part of the streak. I'm like, and I beat Love Doug in like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. And I cut a promo saying, no, that was too easy. I want a challenge. If anybody has the balls, blah, blah, blah. And you just see Ethan taking off his announcer's outfit. He's got a singlet on underneath it. And everybody's reacting behind me, and I play it off like I don't see him, and I turn around and he gives me like an Austin Des press and starts knuckling me like, come on, you fat son of a bitch. He's trying to beat me up, and I'm like, he hits me with a bunch of falsies, and then I take his head off and I finish him off, and people thought he was going to beat me. Like, I love it. We worked. I remember this specifically because no one knew that was going to happen, but me, the referee, Ethan, and Randy. The other camera guy, the other camera guy didn't even know, and everybody around us didn't know. Nobody knew.
Amazed because they're the workers. They have it. That must have been, like I said, it must have been this like in awe, like what's going on right now.
Yeah, and I told Love Doug on when we were like going about to go out there. Like I told him it was up, so I told him once you're done, roll out because this was going to happen. He's like, no problem. He's like, I'm probably going to hide over in the corner and watch. He's like, I'm going to sell over to the corner and watch it. And that's really what happened. Like you just see it from all sides. If you watch the video, you see from everybody from all sides. You know, they're like behind the curtain, start coming out from the curtain, like peeking and like walking around and trying to be a part of the audience and sit and like watch it. Because back then it was pandemic, so we all had to be 6 feet apart in chairs and all
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
They all just start sneaking out and saying, fuck it. Like they're going to watch it happen. And they all start watching it. And I just remember looking in the back and seeing people like pop because they thought Ethan was going to like 1, 2, no. And they're popping like, this is bullshit. Like they couldn't believe I kicked out. Go back and watch it. And then you're going to be like, wow, that was hilarious. It's all of like 2.5 minutes long, but it was great.
No,
I would like the
and
voice.
honestly, the storytelling during that time it got me into it. I think it got a lot of fans into it. But it was a lot of brilliant storytelling and just little things like that. Just for me, you might see it on TV, but it doesn't mean as much. For me, it means things that you see someone like either you see him, commentate, you saw him commentate, you see all the stuff that he's done, and then you see him get picked on. You start to feel for him even more than you would somebody
He's
on
getting
TV.
bullied. We all can relate to that because at one point in our lives, all of us had to be bullied at some point in our lives.
Yeah.
School and stuff. So when he was getting picked, like that's why I did it with my angle. And I told him when we came back to the second angle, like it was like almost like we're coming full circle. And this is the way we got to do it. And I'm happy he had that payoff with that tag because it was a good end for his story. And it helped build my story up with Brett. Because like I said, I picked on Ethan in my previous time, so it makes me the nicer, good guy, while Brett's the asshole being the bully this time. So,
Yeah,
but,
I don't know if you could have. I don't know if you could have out-bullied Brett.
no,
Brett can
when he with the jacket and him going full, I call him going full Ken.
Yeah, he has he's one of those people like that. If he wants to, he can turn it all the way up and just get under people's skin in ways that you don't even know how. He doesn't have to do anything so much. He can just his mannerisms can get people irked. I've seen it. It's great. It's great story. It's great character work.
Yeah.
But that's what I think sets a lot of wrestlers apart. If they can do great character work, it doesn't have to be so much their actions, just how they present themselves. If they can get just a pop or booze off of just that, it's like, okay, you've got the start, you got the foundation. As I get older, I tend to get more into the character side of wrestling because it's different. You see a lot of matches, you see a lot of athletics.
The entertainment. The entertainment, yeah. You need it. Yeah. For sure.
I like to see what people can do differently. What can they bring to the table as far as, where can they bring their character? What can they do with it? How can they manipulate it? How can they get people to, get involved differently and do their character differently? And then, a lot of promotions pop up now like Rad Pro, Wrestling with Character, Cabba Wrestle, different promotions that have wrestlers go on and come out as, totally different stars.
I agree.
Heels will play face will play heels, and it's cool to see.
People that's the thing that needs to happen in wrestling is the character based stuff, because then people can relate to it and understand it. Like, and I'll give it to him. He doesn't really wrestle much anymore, but Mac Daniels was easily like just he as soon as he came out, you hated him. Like you knew like what he was gonna. His character works great. So that's why I did have a feud with him at Let's Wrestle 2, which I really enjoyed because he actually wanted to be a heel. And I think that's the thing too.
How are you surprised Brett was able to become the face in that whole story? Like just the whole thing with John Albert and the way they worked that with Mac, him and the way they split. PRG became like this hero out of it.
Right. And that's the thing, like you gotta want to be the characters, and so I think a lot of wrestlers just want to be wrestlers, and then there's guys that want to do the character work. Like Love Doug, loved all of his character work, dude. I love his character work. I love that shit. His music, dude. His music alone gets you right into it.
Right there. Once you hear it drop, and that's the thing. Like these are all people I started to see in the pandemic, and just stole my. Speaking of love, they stole my heart. Like his feud with Ava was one of the best feuds I've ever witnessed.
Character work is priceless.
Character work, both of them. Ava's amazing at her character. When she wants to be bad, she stays in character. You'll go and get an autograph. she'll sign it upside down and tell you to go screw yourself. Like she don't care, and that's great.
There was one promo I wish we got to do during the road to lead into that Love Doug match. It was supposed to be, I was supposed to be this is what me and Randy had planned it all out and everything, and I was going to do it. I was like, fuck, let's do it. And we didn't get to do it. We just didn't have the time, and he was so overwhelmed with how many matches were done during those tapings. It was just a stupid amount of matches. Anyway, the promo was, so I'm giving you some backstage deets. So we were doing all these backstage promos with me and Ethan and all the other stuff, me and doing the streak. And the promo is supposed to be with Ethan. I'm doing the promo, and I'm not happy I'm doing the promo. And I'm talking to Ethan, and I accidentally turn around and I bump into somebody, and it's Love Doug. But when I bump into Love Doug, he had coffee in his hands, and he's supposed to turn and spill the hot coffee all over me. And I'm like, oh, and I'm pissed. And he knows, and he's just upset because those coffees were supposed to be for Ava. And I proceed to chase him. We're gonna do backyard, like backstage scenes of me chasing him through other people's promos. We're gonna chase him. There'll be a promo with like Ace, and I'm just running in the background, chasing after him. Come back here, you little son of a bitch! And eventually, I catch him. I get him in the ring. He's
like Bob Uecker, fucking running around all night looking.
So he's got shit going on with Ava, and then we're mixing storylines. Is what the cool part was. We were doing the coffee idea, was supposed to be great, and I was like, I'm all the while I'm covered in coffee through all these promos, so I'm just running around chasing him. And eventually, I catch him in the ring. That's how I get him. I get him in a match.
Oh, I like that.
Man, we never did it, just because that would have taken so much time.
I can see there was a lot of matches, and especially how it filmed. Fans probably don't realize it, but it was all filmed in like a day or two. Like it wasn't filmed every week.
2 days.
Yeah, it wasn't every week people got together and filmed. It was all done in like 2 days and then spread apart and edited.
Yeah, we did. I can't remember if we set up on a Thursday and did Friday and Saturday, or if we set up on a Friday and did Saturday and Sunday. We set the ring up beforehand, so we could have everything spaced out and set up. And then the next day, everybody showed up first thing in the morning to do the tapings. And we would do the tapings all day long until the late hours of the evening. Like when we finally finished the lineup, there'd be like a lineup sheet of like 40 matches or so. Something like it was stupid. And we get to, and sometimes we didn't get through all of them, and then we'd have to carry them on to the next day. And then we didn't get to leave until all the matches were done. And then after the matches were done, we'd have to tear down, bring all that shit back to the dojo, set it back. It was just it was a lot. And that's why
nobody had wrestled in probably about a year.
Oh, and that's after the first set of road tapings. It was the one thing that me and Randy had talked about, and that he regrets it a little bit, is letting everybody and their uncle come, because everybody was itching to wrestle. No one could do anything. Everybody wanted to do it. So the road happened, and it worked out great. But then everybody saw the road, and every wrestler across New England wanted to be a part of it.
Oh, you got all sorts of names. Like Dr. Cube was on there at one point. Like
all
these names were on the road that you would just never know.
I'm officially wrestled in Kaiju Big Battle.
We're dying to be on Limitless.
I know. I couldn't really Dr. Cube and the Beetle, and I was like, I was in a Kaiju Big Battle match, and I never thought that would ever happen, but I was in a Kaiju Big Battle match. I couldn't believe that. Me and Alec Price. Anyway,
he's the one that really took off. Like I remember seeing him in like Pandemic in the dojo, which came right before the road.
Mm-hmm. And that's when the streak started. Yeah.
From that to like now, the kid just blow up. Just the arc is just straight up. It's like he's taking off.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of. I think if I remember correctly, Randy got a lot of flack for the Pandemic of the dojo stuff, because it was right on that cusp timeline wise, where everything was starting to shut down, and he got some. I remember him getting a lot of flack for it, but we got a lot of traction from it. And then he set up the road thing. And then when the road happened, we just carried over everything from Pandemic of the Dojo. I think that was the last match actually on the Pandemic of the Dojo. I think it was me and Zach Burton in a deserted dojo match is what we called it. It's pretty much a weapons match in the dojo. And I remember that was the last match of that. And then we carried on to the road and we did all that. And then
And then
eventually,
I mean, the road just also told its story too, because then like during the road, AG got signed, he got picked up, he moved. You have to see all
those were
that
his
that
last
took,
indie matches before he had gotten signed. Yeah.
and new champions and new things and all this stuff that was just going on and like I said, there was still pay-per-views happening every month too, tape. Um,
Yeah.
like
Those were the-
one of my favorite is Double Vision, honestly. I thought that was just a great show. But I was a big Garcia fan. He really did it for me in the pandemic, probably held it down, but I really enjoyed watching him wrestle.
Yeah.
The things he did.
I remember when the accident happened with him, with the Buffalo Boys there. I don't know if you heard about that car accident.
I
Yeah.
didn't. I don't think I heard about it. I mean, I used to see him come all the time. Well, Blackwood was up in Limitless. He was living on the East Coast at the time, and sometimes Puff would go. Usually, most of the time, Puff would come up too.
I believe there was an accident that had happened a while back, and they were lucky to get out of that, with their lives. Bad things
Well, it's
happen.
scary. I mean, unfortunately, that's a long ride though, from Buffalo, New York to Maine. Isn't an easy. We talked about tolls. We're talking all those tolls. You're talking a lot of highway stretch, a lot of driving, a lot of riding, and it's not even your own riding when you drive. Unfortunately, especially late night, you got to worry about other people on the road doing stupid stuff.
And
It's scary out there sometimes. I will be honest.
yeah, and if you're the one stuck driving at the end of the night, that's the roughest time because you just wrestled. You crammed yourself in a vehicle for X amount of hours. You probably ate too, so your body's trying to go in a food coma. And then usually half the car, if not all of the car, but you are falling asleep.
That
So
happened to me. Now I didn't wrestle, but that happened to me coming home from the boardwalk. Everybody just went to sleep except me, and I'm just like trying to keep my eyes open, like going toll to toll, just going and going. It's like I look around, like everyone's asleep. Really? Like not one person can be just awake.
yeah, well, the person whoever's supposed to be sitting with you in the front is supposed to be A, the navigator, B, the person that helps keep you both awake, and also supposed to be running the radio. But that used to be the road. That used to be the rule back in wrestling. If you're sitting in the front with the driver,
The guy in the front fell asleep too, but
of course you did.
but yeah, it is a long ride. That's scary to think about, though. I'm glad everybody was safe, though. Those were some, like I said, my fondest memories was seeing them, all three of them actually wrestle up in Limitless, and just watching how good Danny was as being a heel, watching how good Blackwood was being a heel and playing off of him, and then playing off of each other.
Yeah.
One of my favorite feuds was him and JD Drake. They just gave an amazing, competition, and the hate between the two just boiled up. A lot of great stuff, during that time that really got me into loving Limitless and loving even Maine wrestling as a whole. Because I got to, from Limitless, got to start to meet people that, worked other shows, or I would see things about other shows, and people would say, hey, we're going to be wrestling over here in such and such promotion. So now I start to learn about more promotions. Like you said, now there's good 5 solid promotions that are running up there.
Right. See, before, back when I was running my shows for like the 9 years I ran them, as many people called it, I was like Motel 6. I kept the light on. People say I was the lifeblood of wrestling up until Limitless came, but I don't call it that. I call it the lifeline. Like we were on like I kept wrestling going when no one else was doing it. And I think that's why everybody keeps my name around. That's why I get the reactions that I do and things
You're
like that.
synonymous with Maine Ralph. You're a legend up there. I mean, if anybody talks Maine, they talk about you first, almost.
And that makes me feel good. I mean, I was the one that first started to change because back when I first started, if you got 100 people in a venue, it was a good night at the office, and I thought that was terrible. I was like, we should be breaking that. And I remember the first show I ran, I drew like 156. And I'm like, yeah, we're changing the tide. And that was my goal, was always to keep it going and change the tide. I was also the place that, because Maine, it was so far out of the way, as you know from the drives, that nobody wanted to come up there. So it was like whoever was left, we were the leftovers. We were the Sonny Roselli used to call us the land of misfit toys because we were all the wrestlers that wanted to wrestle, but no one had nowhere to go. And I had guys from Canada, like people that weren't getting work anywhere. You see Wesley Pipes, that's MPW champion. Back when he started, he was called Straight Jacket and used to wear like clown makeup, like he looked like he was straight out of a mental institution. Had the schmuck stuff on and nothing with wrestling boots and big guy, but he was not in the shape he is now. And he had nowhere to work for the longest time, and he'd always bring guys down with him. And now look where he is. You know, he's traveling internationally and looks greatest shape of his life. But
Yeah.
it started from people needing a place to work, and I made it happen. And then it went from there to running 2 shows a month to 4 shows a month. I remember running 6 shows a month sometimes, and then still having TV every week. So, like the ongoing slogan for their shows, where everybody knew that had to do like, everybody, we got to do promos today. And then like, oh, TV promos? Yep. And it was simple. It was, hey, I'm so-and-so, and you're watching I2B TV Saturdays at noon on Fox 22. And it was just a 30-second snippet to put themselves over. I had some from like all the big names. I'd have like, I remember Savio Vega came up from Puerto Rico after I went down and worked for him. He came up a bunch of times. And he would do a bunch of different ones. He'd do like ones bilingually. He would say, blah, 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 blah. Savio, I couldn't understand what he was saying because he was saying it so fast. I'm like, I only have like high school Spanish. And I couldn't. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I was like, and he'd be like, oh, Savio Vega, Saturdays at noon, Fox 22. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to use that a lot. Like, the Honky Tonk Man. You're watching the Honky Tonk Man and Saturdays at noon on Fox 22. I was like, that's dope. Like, even just having those 30-second snippets, it was cool. But those were transitions. And just having all the TV, I think, is also the thing. Like, people bitched back in the day. I know that's what probably started the supposed stigma around Maine wrestling about pay. And I'm like, well, if you want to pay for the TV show, you guys can, but this is what I can afford to do. I always told people, this is what I financially can afford to do. And I would do it. I'd have people hit me up all the time for work, and I'm like, I can't afford it because I already have a full roster. I'm like, we'll come up for nothing. And then they'd come up for nothing just to get work in. And I'd give them, because I was always open door. Like, you want a place to work, you can work here, but I can only afford so much because I have TV, I have 6 shows a month, and I have a full roster as it is. And I remember guys would come up, work shows, and then be bitching I wasn't paying them. And I'm like, I really have your messages that stay that you would come up with nothing.
Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, as long as you're paying the people you hired.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and I'm going to pay I'm going to pay my core roster that I've always paid, and I'd always give people a chance. Like, listen, if you're asking for work, I have an open door policy. You can come work, but I have TV, advertising, full roster to pay for, a name usually, because I did a name every other month most of the time. And then on top of that, like, I have expenses. Like, the ring's got to stay fixed, the van's got to be up to date.
They're not included in whatever your budget was for the show. Your show's already full. These people are coming on extra. It's like it's already been paid for and done.
Yeah, like I budget everything. I'm business savvy. I'm a 1099 worker. I'm literally an independent contractor for a living on top of wrestling, and I count that in my taxes too, by the way. But like, I budget everything. I budget everything. Yeah, I'm budgeting everything. So I knew what I was doing. That's why I did it for 9 years, and I still had people bitching at me like, "Oh, well, you didn't give me any pay," or so and so came up and you only gave them $5 or $10. I'm like, that's because I was being nice because they weren't booked.
Speaking of that, the lucky promoters don't send 1099s at the end of the year.
They legally can.
They wanted to.
Yeah, I have a waiver system where I have all that sent, and like, I literally have a waiver system that's showed my tax account and my lawyer, and it's good. It's fine to use, but it literally states, like, you can't sue me for advertising you, because that's the thing too. Like, realize with wrestling, like, how if someone owns their likeness, like if someone has an LLC or whatever of their name, the wrestling name, and you use it, technically, if you don't have permission, you have to pay them. So by these waiver systems, it gives me permission to use their shit, so they can't sue me. I also have permission, like, they can't sue me if I decide to sell the DVD and they want to cut. Like, that's not.
That's why you also bring in your own photographers and don't use other people's promo photos.
That's what I have my own person that does photos now. Every event, I have her. Lee Miller's wife, Cindy, has her own camera, and she's a photographer, and she comes and does all my events. And mind you, I give the wrestlers these pictures for free, so they can get them from me.
Well, it's not even for that. It's just because I've had a situation where, like, I'll ask a wrestler, "Hey, I'm going to have an episode, right? I'm doing an interview. Can you send me a promo picture so I can promote the episode?" Cool. They send me a promo picture. All of a sudden, about 3 or 4 days later, I'll get a notification or get a thing saying I have to remove the photo because it's a copywritten photo to some photographer in some other place. You know, they're not even supposed to use the photo themselves, never mind a third party using it. So
Well, I have an agreement with Cindy because she comes with Lights Out Lee Miller's on the show, so she comes along, and I give her and her family free tickets, and I give her some stuff, and she'll take these pictures and do it, and so all the wrestlers can have these pictures to use, but let them be known I use them for my events, and all the promoters there can use them. So like they can't sue anybody, they can't do nothing. I try to cover people's asses because I have studies in criminal justice and constitutional law, so I try to cover people's asses, not just my own, but the venues too. Like in my waiver, you get hurt, you can't sue the venue. You can't go after the venue, you can't go after your opponent, you can't go after me. You know full well that you are covered under your own insurance, not mine, like a liability waiver, essentially. So like my waivers cover all a bunch of different things on purpose. It's not me being an asshole. I know there's assholes in wrestling that will say,
well, if you had no waiver and your opponent got injured, he's going to turn around and probably either sue you or sue the venue or sue the ring owner or somebody. He'll find a way.
That's what ruins it. Like that's the problem. Like or let's say someone decides to damage a venue, and like let's say they go and they damage the venue or break a table, and well, you're responsible. In my waiver, you're responsible for that. You have to pay for the table. You don't want to, then you have to deal with the cops, because I'm going to literally the venue's going to call the cops, or I am, and you're going to deal with them. I have zero tolerance for any of that shit.
Yeah, because it all comes back to you, the promoter or whatever. They'll be like, we're never going to rent to you again. You destroyed my venue. What the hell?
And that's the problem, because up here in Maine, that's happened quite frequently. People have ruined venues because of it. And it's just you can't get them back. I remember the venue no longer is in the hands, but it was a venue run by the city of Bangor over in K Park, and I had this venue and was letting Johnny Primer. I let him run. He used to run these events called Primer Inc. Presents, and he ran a show there with New Jack on the show. And he had New Jack and Tony Atlas and a bunch of local guys. It was a good show. He had a good draw. Well, you know how New Jack's matches go.
Yeah, I know.
His music comes out and he beats the fuck out of somebody with weapons. Just what it is. So they had these two dudes going at it. Larry Wilder and Rob Marsh were having a hardcore match. And of course, you hear Natural Born Killers hit, and out comes New Jack, him and Kareem. And they were, I think, managed by the dude that paid the Worm and Blue World Order, Dennis Rodman's character. Yeah. Anyway, they came out to the ring. They beat the shit out of these dudes. Like Rob Marsh knew what he was in for. I don't think Larry Wilder did, but Rob Marsh was like, "I'm getting my ass beat by New Jack. Let's fucking go." Anyway, he beat the fuck out of him. It ended with New Jack coming off the top rope with a chair wrapped in light tubes onto the face of Larry Wilder. Full Cactus Jack style off the top rope. Bless you, just big bang. Well, the announcer was supposed to say before this match started that this match is maybe have extreme violence and may have a bloody nature, all the graphics, parental restriction. Yes. He's supposed to, the announcer didn't do that. So during this matchup, bunch of kids were crying, running out the door. Like people were upset. The wrestling fans thought it was fucking awesome. I thought it was great. But the wrestling fans, that you or me would probably be like, that was fucking awesome. But
yeah, I mean, if you knew what ECW was, or even at the time, you're like, this is something new or cool. It's like, oh my god, this is fucking great. But to a small kid, yeah, I can see that.
It's traumatizing. Yeah. So the announcer didn't warn anybody. And because New Jack came off the top rope with a chair wrapped in light tubes and smashed it across Wilder's face, that was the end of the match. After that, he had sliced his hand open down his arm, and there's just blood going everywhere. So now on top of that, that's traumatizing. New Jack grabs the microphone, he goes, I'm sorry if I scared your motherfucking kids. I'm sorry, it was not meant to do that.
New Jack being New Jack, he's going
to apologize. I'll give it to him. He was trying to apologize. Mind you, he's wrapped his hand up at this point. He's holding the one good hand holding the mic. Sorry if I scared your fucking kids. This motherfucker had it coming. Like he went on full New Jack shoot promo.
Yeah.
He did apologize.
It's another day in the office, a little blood and violence. It's nothing crazy, but for the man, they probably never saw that.
He apologized for it, but the thing is after the show was over, at that point, there was blood everywhere on the floor because his arm was bleeding like bad, and we were trying to clean it up, and there was blood where he was changing. There was blood on the stage. There's blood on the floor. Blood on the ring. There's blood everywhere. They couldn't keep track of it all. Mind you, it was Primer's show, not mine. I was just wrestling on it, but I gave them the venue, and they tried real hard to get it cleaned all up, but they missed some stuff. On top of that, they had to lock the maintenance closet to get all the cleaning stuff out of. So they had to go run to a store in the middle of the night, come back and try to clean that place the best they could. Well, the next day, all those people that walked out on the show during New Jack's match called and complained. Lost the venue. So, but now supposedly a Boys and Girls Club has bought that venue because the city moved out of it. And they're renovating it and they're going to reopen it. So I think MPW is trying to get in there once they reopen it.
What you're saying is they finally can get the blood stains out of it and turn it clean again.
There was a lot of blood, and it was cool. I'll be say this: it was worth it to watch. To watch that shit was great. To see people they were scared was not great.
The announcer, whoever said, viewer discretion advised.
He didn't announce it. He was supposed to.
If he did, would they be able to complain? You think they would have still said, fuck it. You guys all went too far.
I think with that, if you warn people, at least you have a buffer zone. Because I remember with IWE, I did the first ever barbed wire. I think the first ever. It was show because we took our ropes off. We did a barbed wire rope match. We literally took the ropes off, put barbed wire up, and it was Mr. Canada, Ricky Williams versus Cactus, and people stayed. Like we did the same situation like we did with the cage. It was the same situation. Well, we had a full 7-match card, so you had 3 matches, intermission, 3 matches, then the short break to put the barbed wire on. So you take the ropes off, put the barbed wire on. We warned people for 20 minutes during that break. This match will be violent and bloody nature. Viewer discretion is advised. If you are squeamish from blood, squeamish from violence, please do not stay. Everybody stayed. Everybody watched it. And nobody bitched.
But I mean, even if New Jack's was announced to a show, you should at least know there's going to be some sort of level of violence.
I completely agree. Also, it probably also didn't help all the other shit that New Jack did during the match too. Like he came out, he used to come out with a sickle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was stabbing Larry Wilder and Bob Marsh in the head with that sickle.
Yeah, I mean, like not for nothing, but if you never grew up watching ECW, XPW, or any other kind, even Japanese style, death matches. If you never grew up watching, or you're just a casual wrestling fan, to watch that is kind of traumatizing. Like I remember, like in the '90s, people getting upset for people hitting people with chairs and like Raw. Kids were crying.
Yeah.
So fans didn't know about weapons until unless you got into ECW. If you started to watch it, then you found love for it. You found love for the hardcore matches.
I used to watch ECW and the FMW DVDs that used to come out from Japan. I used to watch all that was like exploding ring matches and shit. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah,
but
like Japanese style stuff was what death match in America is today, but they were doing it like 20 years ago.
Right.
Light, glass, explosions.
Yeah. So that's why I say I enjoyed what New Jack did. It was fucking awesome. However, I can see how when there was kids in the audience and they were getting traumatized and we lost that when we lost the venue and Primer felt bad when we lost the venue and I was like, yeah, it was a nice venue too. And it sucked because the venue was nicer than the one I used to run monthly and I was almost tempted to move there because it was a nicer venue and it was cheaper and I had more space.
Like no more wrestling. We're done. No more.
Yeah, no. So we were stuck in the venue we were at always, which is fine. But it would have had bigger ceilings because the venue we did monthly is a short ceiling venue, much like the Palmyra one we're in on the first. That one's a short ceiling venue, so like you can't do a lot off the top rope like you want. No one's doing any moonsaults on anybody or anything. You know what I mean? But
No, it limits, what your high flyer roster can do.
and I hate that because back in the
And then
day.
if they try to do it, you're going to get more venue damage. People are going through the ceiling. I've seen that too.
Oh, I've seen people go through tiles. Yeah, I've seen that happen firsthand. I got it's the Limitless Dojos student showcases we used to do in Brewer at a place called Ronco's, and it was the place I was DJing at, and they had tile ceilings and a sprinkler system that hung low. And I had done a show there, and when it was a different owners years ago when I was DJing there, and they'd reopened and new owners, new place, and I was like, I probably can get a wrestling show in here, and we haven't done one in here in a while, and I think we could do it. We tried it. Nobody hit the sprinkler system, thankfully, but Dave Dyer's head did go through the ceiling. So, I was like, well, that was bound to happen. We told everybody, you can jump out off the top rope. You can't jump up. If you jump up, you're going through that ceiling.
At least nobody tried to do a suplex off the top. Then you got the whole leg going through the ceiling.
No, no one did that. We did tease a bunch of top rope stuff. Me and Ace had one of our grudge matches in there, which was super over. It was a good match, but that's when Dave and then Dave tried. Jay was like my second. He was like my lackey, and he was he wrestled Ace 1-on-1, and Ace killed him. And during that match is when he went through the ceiling. We told him not to do, like, if you're going to the top, jump out, don't jump up. Like, nope, he jumped up to the ceiling. They were okay with it. Nothing broke, so they were cool. They were like, while you're up there, can you fix the tile? That's what they joked about it. Like, so it was good.
You see on videos, sometimes you'll see like whole ceilings collapsing, or spots be done, and like half of ceiling comes tumbling down. It's like, that costed the promoters something at the end of the night.
Well, if it's a drop tile ceiling, tiles can easily fall out, which those are cheap to replace. And thankfully, they're cheap to replace because you can just order a bunch of them, and you might have done them a favor because half of those are probably stained from being up there for years or whatever. The problem is if you break the metal trusses holding the drop tile, because then they have to replace the metal things that hold the drop tiles. To replace those, it's a pain in the ass. You have to replace the whole section. So you have to place like a whole certain, like almost a room full square.
Drag and bend and pull the whole thing. It's just like, it's not just a couple tiles falling. Like, I know what those look like you said, they might even have replacements for that.
Yeah.
It's when you got, like you said, the metal gets bent.
Yeah, and if the metal falls down and rips off.
Too, or like it'll be like a ballroom kind of area. They'll have chandeliers, the whole thing will come down. It's like,
oh yeah, well that's the thing too. At the Palmyra venue, there are these, like, they're not chandeliers, but they're like hanging lights. But we position the ring in between them, so it's not an issue. But like, I've seen it. I've seen the chandelier issue, and that gets scary when you're in like a nice, fine, like high upscale venue, and you break a crystal chandelier.
Not good. You're not going back to that.
No, you're not going back, and the promoter's probably not booking you again. And on top of that, you're probably gonna have some type of financial, more than your pay is gonna get taken away.
You're not getting paid. Your pay might be withheld, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you might not. If you are working for this promoter again, you're not getting paid for this foreseeable future until said chandelier has been replaced. So, I've had to do that before. I've had people go get thrown into a wall, especially at that Fairfield venue that we were talking about where the cage match happened. I had someone get thrown into a wall there. Yep. And I'm like, assholes. We don't own this venue. It's just drywall. And you're whipping someone into the wall? Common sense would tell you that's probably not a good idea. So I had to pay for the wall. Luckily, I was upfront about it. I called the venue and told them, hey, there's a crack in this wall. And I said someone fell into it, which they kind of did. They got thrown into it, but they fell into it. And I said I'd pay for it.
One got one through somebody, and the other guy fell.
And because I paid for it up front, they didn't take it out of my deposit, so I could keep renting there. And luckily, they had a maintenance guy back then who could fix that stuff. So it wasn't that expensive to fix. But I've seen some bad things where we lose venues. I got someone a venue, and they had glass doors, and they put a ring post through the glass door because they're idiots and didn't prop the door open and just swung it open instead. I'm like, you're carrying a giant metal post, right? And that's a glass door. Common sense say wedge the door open first, then walk it through.
Oh, just batter and ram it through.
Well, they opened it. They had the post in, they opened it, and then they went to pick up the post and hoping the door would swing it out enough so they could pick it up and walk it through. And then as they're walking through, it comes back, caught the edge of one of the smash. Yep, exactly. Yep, like common sense, guys. You guys are
Not even
world.
not even getting into the door yet, and it's already damage done.
Yeah, I'm like, in a world where people should have common sense, which is professional wrestling, because we're putting each other's lives at risk. There is none.
Well, when it comes to that, there is. Everybody's pretty safe, at least that I
Yeah, that's
see.
what I'm saying. You think because of what we're doing, people would have that.
Well, no, when it gets out of the ring, everything just gets forgotten about.
Yeah, they're like, whatever, it's fine.
Everybody's just fumbling around doing whatever. You get in the ring, everyone's a surgeon. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But no, that's great though. I mean, it's unfortunate, but things do happen. Sometimes funny to look back at, sometimes not so funny to look back at. But things, venues, wrestlers have had incidents, like you said. New Jack, he was a character in himself. But I mean, I like I said, I think if you had him on your show, you're the booker booking him. You know what you're getting into by having him on that show. You know that someone's bleeding, someone's going home hurt, probably offended, and police might come, maybe not.
Right. Yeah.
You
I know what
know,
was happening. There's also a backstory behind it too. So I loved it. There's a why I loved it. There's a backstory behind it, but I'm gonna leave it at that. That's why I loved it. But
well, New Jack's a good guy. I mean, I had gone to he's somebody that I got to talk to in the pandemic. He wrote a book, and he was actually talking with fans directly and selling his book. And he would actually sit and chat with me for some time to time. We would talk wrestling and talk different things. Very open, cool dude. I wouldn't want to face him in a hardcore match. I probably
no, I
wouldn't want
wouldn't
to.
either. No.
But
Me
he
and
was
Pat
definitely
for a few minutes. He was a good dude. I like talking to him.
I would have loved to be in a relaxed, chill situation, maybe talk wrestling philosophy, but I wouldn't want to be on the opposite side.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to him. I would never wrestle him though. If you're signing up to wrestle New Jack, you're getting your ass beat probably for about 15 minutes with weapons.
Yeah, it's coming, and it's just like, okay.
But that's what people are saying to watch. That comes with the territory.
Hey, I got my ass kicked by New Jack. It's not nothing, small feat, but
that's why. Yeah, Rob Marsh loved it because he's like, dude, I got to get my ass beat by New Jack, and back then he wasn't wrestling that much, so that's something you can put on your notch on your belt. You say, hey, I got the fucking.
I survived this match with New Jack. You can book me. I promise you, I'm good.
Yeah. Started Rob Marsh's deathmatch career, so good for him. I mean, Rob Marsh isn't wrestling right now, I don't think, but
he
started his deathmatch career, so good for him.
Yeah, that's it. If you don't die fighting New Jack, then you're pretty good to go.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much. We're way over the time. I never go 2 hours. I think Larry went an hour and a half. But I never go past 2 hours.
Same thing happened with the
good conversation and good talk. I like it. And
same thing happened with the Processions boys. They ended up going 3 hours with me because they kept they'd ask a question, boom, we get into the question. There'd be a story. I have so much because I've been doing it so long. I have so much info, and I've never really done these podcast deals because I've never time wise. I work a lot of nights, so I don't. As we know, you've been trying to get me on here for ever.
But I probably do have a list of questions. We'll be here for another 5 hours. I'm one of those people that could just talk wrestling because I do enjoy. I like hearing the stories. I like hearing what goes on, how it's set up. I want to make sure.
I want to make sure you got what what you guys want out of it too. Because that's why I'm like, if I can make the time, I'm going to do these with people and try to get the info out there. Because essentially, guys like me that've been doing it long enough, once we're out, the information kind of just disappears into the ether. You know what I mean? So I rather
the new generation doesn't remember these stories, or to them that wrestling world is no longer existence. But to a lot of the people, it still is there. But like I said, I talked to a lot of people in Maine this year. Lights Out Lee Miller. I talked to his tag partner with the Pathway. I talked to Randy Carver Jr., Larry Huntley, and a bunch of others, and they've all mentioned your name. This pinnacle in Maine wrestling. And like I said, I got to talk to this dude. I've watched you wrestle. I've seen, I got your trading card. We traded trading cards to had
Yep.
duplicates. Which is another cool thing that Randy did was make the Let's Wrestle trading cards. I know they did the Maine limitless ones, but to
Yeah.
get the Let's Wrestle guy, because there was people out there that was like,
What you
hitting me
got
up.
those ones I signed, right? You got those ones? You got
Yes,
them
I
now?
did. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Cool.
Thank
Those are
you
ones.
again.
Yeah, no worries. Those ones were the limited, I think, ones that with the Stigma one was a special edition one because that was when Brandino turned over the belts. Like I think that night that the Stigma cards came out was a Let's Wrestle show. And I talked to Randy in advance because he was turning over the belts because he knew he wasn't going to be able to wrestle anymore because that's before he knew he was going to get candy transplant and all that stuff. But I said we should surprise him with it, and we didn't tell Brandino to the day of, like the whole card thing. Like we don't know. Each of us got a card. Me and in the ring, me and Brandino. We don't know who has the first card or the second card, but we have the first two cards printed. One of us does. one of us has one has two, but we don't know which one. And then we got an extra card because I think he got one for his mom, and I got one for him to sign, so I can have it. So we both had the first of the 5 cards from that were printed of the Stigma cards. The rest of them Randy took a bunch. He sold them at the event, and then after the event was over, you couldn't buy them. He randomly put them in packs and sent them out. So people those Stigma cards are random. They were never a part of any set. So if you got one, which you have one, they're rather rare.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and then my card he released actually is he released it and then realized it was the streak information is incorrect on it afterward, but it's too late by then. But so those I got the first ones from that too. I think I got the first.
And I got a Channing comment posted that says that he beat Desmond Cole at that first fight they had, and it showed him being the longest reigning limitless champion and everything, all celebratory. It obviously didn't happen that way. He didn't get to use it, but I still
Right.
hanging
That's
out.
cool. Yeah. So I'm happy to get those.
He was that close. Now he has another chance to become the longest reigning champion.
I mean,
depending on how long AG will let this cruise go.
Well, AG also, I think, is going back to Japan on and off a lot, which bless him.
I did hear that, which is another, he's another one that, he had the curse when WWE came back, then he got the curse again and went to Japan.
That's where he's doing it. I mean, he's making it over there. I'm happy for him, and I think it makes him happy being over there. Because I've seen since
people from Japan bring back like Rip Bison and getting this kind of style of wrestling into American wrestling, bringing wrestlers back and forth. They had a tag team come into Limitless, even that they coming back and forth.
Yeah, the story with that I think was because I know Rip runs Grind, I believe. Yeah. So what it was is Rip and Perry went over because they do a tag, and they went overseas to Japan, and Rip has gone, I think, twice so far, maybe 3 times. Don't quote me. Perry's only gone the 1 time, but because they went over there and they were at this dojo over there that's attached to the company that Tajiri teaches at. When they decided to return the favor, which was get these guys to come to the stateside, and they used them at Grind and at Limitless and a bunch of other promotions when they were over here for like a month. So they got them a bunch of work on this side of the fence.
And that's cool, though, because they're coming with the whole, they're bringing in the strong style. They're teaching that kind of wrestling. It's a different kind of ethic, and you're getting that exposure. And then in the vice versa, Perry and Rip are going over there giving exposure. People are, where do you wrestle in, this state? Oh, we wrestle Limitless. Oh, we wrestle in Maine. We wrestle here. We wrestle in Grind. And those guys are watching that via, probably IW.
And the fact that they're bringing those guys over here too to work and getting them set up so they can work some stuff in the States is great exposure for them, because they're probably very grateful they get to do that, because when you're over there, only certain groups wrestle with certain groups because you're attached to certain dojos and certain companies. There's Noah, New Japan, there's different groups that people work with. So with that, you usually only respectively work with that group.
Yeah, you're not really kind of independent. At that
So
point.
when they come over here, they're working multiple places. They're getting a chance to get multiple exposure, at least in New England based, and to work in the United States is probably a huge honor for a bunch of them because they never thought they probably ever would do that.
Well, that's
So
vice versa. I mean, even growing up, you would watch like Hogan go to Japan and Andre go to Japan, and these guys go to Japan. It'd be a big deal. It'd be very prestigious for a United States pro wrestler to wrestle in Japan.
agreed. Yeah.
Hogan, he would actually work. He would actually do things over there.
Yeah.
He
If you
couldn't
look up
just
the match of
rely
him
on.
and Muda had a fucking hell of a match over there.
They wanted to see him work, and he could work. It wasn't that he couldn't. They just told him to dumb it down here. Same thing with Andre. They told him to dumb it down, be a giant. Hogan, you're good at this, do this. But he could actually wrestle. These people could wrestle. They were fully trained.
Yeah.
In Japan, they had to show out. They didn't really care about the character. They wanted to see what the wrestler could do, what it looked like to
Yeah,
wrestle.
but to them, it's still real over there. To them, it's a competition still, which is
It's a
also
different ball set, and it's a little bit more stiffer. Strong styles a totally different kind of game. The strikes are totally different.
yeah.
It's still pro wrestling. Obviously, no one's going to go out there and break your neck, but again, like I said, the strikes and everything, they take it a little bit more serious and a little bit more of a competition. Like you said, you're that strong to take these hits. And it's cool to see it brought here because, you'll get these, great American wrestlers fighting that style against Japanese guys or even each other. And it's like, wow, they can do that too. Rip's a great, strong style fighter. He's got that brute force about him.
Yeah, and I've seen it. Like he's definitely his work has definitely changed since coming back from over there too. I worked one of his first matches back. I did that Whoopie Pie Festival for Let's Wrestle and did that.
Yep.
I wrestled him back during the road a bunch of times. So working him when he came back, he was like night and day. He changed a lot, and I could tell. I was like, okay. We were still feeling it out. And I mean, we had a decent little match, but I think like it wasn't. I don't think it was up to what he would wanted to do. Like I think he wants to do a certain way now because that's the way he likes to wrestle, and I respect that. Compared
No,
to
but him and Perry have come even a tremendous long way themselves. Like I remember first seeing Perry was wearing a money suit. He had a totally different
yes,
gimmick.
he was. I remember that suit. Oh my god!
And Rip was wrestling under Tomahawk. He was, they were tagging up different things later on, but they were both very different, and they've changed both, in wrestling skill and in physical, strength and just in getting
Rip's in the best shape of his life right now, I believe. Rip's like in the best shape of his life. And I always see videos of him working out. He goes hard. I respect it.
And it's cool to see. That's another arc that I've been able to, been lucky to witness here, watching indie wrestling.
Yeah.
But we could definitely go on all probably night. Although
we're all about 2.5 hours in now. Like I said, with the per sessions guys, I ended up going like 3 hours. I felt bad. I was like, yeah, but they kept asking me questions. I was gonna keep answering. So, but yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I had a good time. Sorry we couldn't do this sooner. I've been so busy with my work.
I look forward to Ring Wars and checking that out and seeing what is going to come of that. Because, like I said, I'm really interested in that. Just the way you sold it and talked about it. Just seeing promotions kind of just being part of a competition. You're not really supporting a promotion. You're just seeing wrestling, but there's different promotions there.
Like I said, the focus on Ring Wars is the matches, and representing your organization, and
it gives a different feel of what pro wrestling can be or can look like and feel like.
Correct.
Than a typically one promotion ran show or just a single show. It's like the World Series of like I said, the Olympics. You got all these people, countries or promotions coming out, and you representing them. I love to see that. And I'm gonna hopefully check it out. But I do thank you for coming on, answering my questions, and stumbling through. Sometimes I stumble.
You're good, man.
But hey, it's wrestling. It's podcast. It's supposed to be fun. If it's not, don't do it. That's what I always say. If it's not fun anymore, don't do it.
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't fun. Like everybody asks me still, like if I still have fun doing it. I'm like, I look forward to the match when I get to it. Me, I look at it differently from most, and I won't go into all of it because I've been doing it so long. Like when my match is coming up, that's when I look forward to it. Everybody's like, oh, you're like, sometimes they'll see me and I'm not like in a good mood, and I'm like, I'm not really in any mood. I'm just being me, Like my switch flips when it's match time.
You're like a melodrama kind of guy. You're like, you chill, chill, chill. Your match comes, then you start to hype yourself up when it's time. You don't waste your energy months prior, weeks prior.
Exactly. Like, and that's the thing. People want to talk about a match beforehand. I'm not down. Like when we get there, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I tried to get into wrestling. I was told I was a little small, so I went into boxing, amateur boxing. And similar to that, I was doing a lot of stuff, but it takes mental energy out of you when you start to think. And if you start to think about your opponent, overthink your fight, overthink your match, get hyped up, get too excited. It all drains your energy.
Mhm.
Mental energy becomes physical energy, and then you start to get tired before the match has even begun. So I'm guessing it's kind of similar to that. You don't want to overwork yourself up until it's time to actually use that energy.
Exactly. Like to me, I'm once my match hits, I'm game on. Like, and like before that, I'm getting game on too. Like when I'm at the venue, I'm getting in there. But like wait, like everybody wants to talk about shit. I'm like, wait until I'm out back and I'm changed. I'll tell you when I'm ready. We'll talk. It's nothing against you. Just let me get my switch on. Let me
Take your atmosphere in, you become you become Eric
Yeah.
Johnson, and you get out there.
And I get in the modern era, like all these guys want to plan out 18 things like a week in advance. I'm like, you're not going to be able to do that if you ever get a big job at a big company. Like, that's not how it works. You're not going to know who you're wrestling from week to week. So, like, and especially with house shows and things like that. But, like, I'm like, just wait to the show. You can have some ideas.
Yeah, you're
Wait till
not
the
running.
show.
You're not at a WWE show. You're at whatever show. It's like obviously you're gonna do it how you do it. If you were told to do it differently by management, then you would have to do it how you were told.
Right, of course. Yeah. But as
But no
I
one's
always tell guys,
how to do your match. It's like personal preference. There's guys that don't even talk and just go in there and do everything on the fly.
I could do that. That's how seasoned I am. I would rather feel out the crowd. Also,
That's
like
how people would talk, though. A lot of people would talk that way. Feel out the crowd, see which way it's flowing, and go with it.
you got it. Yeah. And then the other thing is like the biggest pet peeve, and if anybody listens to this, it's great. Biggest pet peeve you could never do to a guy that's more experienced, is when they ask you, would you have any things you want to do, or you have anything in mind you were feeling like you wanted to do, and they go, I'm down to do whatever, or I don't know. That's the biggest pain in the ass answers ever. I don't know. Whatever you want, I can do anything. No.
Give answers. Give
You have
answers.
answers, like, because this is your chance to put in a spot that you had in mind. I love it when someone has an answer. I'm like, oh, good, we can work, do some fun shit. I hate it when I have to watch my opponent's matches to figure out their spots because they can't tell me their own fucking spots. So,
And you would think that's the person to do it with. Someone that's experienced is going to know how to perform it, execute it, take it, do whatever has to be done to make it look good. You're going to make the person look good doing it.
yes, and I hate it when I get it when they're green and they're starting out. That's fine, but when I'm wrestling guys that are 5 years in, 10 years in, and I go, hey, what do you want to do? What do you have in mind? Do you have any spots in mind before I just put shit together? And they'll be like, oh, I'll do whatever want to do. I'm like, I fucking hate you. Like, this is your chance to do your shit, and you're not fucking helping me. Give me something. And so, what I'll usually do if I know the person's been not doing it very long, like they're a year in or something, I'll watch some of their shit beforehand, so I know some of their spots. But if it's someone I've experienced, I usually don't. And I hate it when they don't give me anything to work with. I'm like, why are you here?
You want me to call? They want you to call the whole match.
Exactly, and I'm cool with it. I'm cool with calling the whole match. But when they bitch about it later, I'm like, I gave you chances to tell me shit you wanted to do, and you didn't want to tell me.
They'll go back and tell the other guy, well, Eric Johnson, don't work him. He doesn't let you get anything in. He just does everything he wants to do. It's like,
right. I also telling them no when they want to do stupid shit that doesn't make any sense. Like I love it when guys always want to say, well, I'm going to pick you up. I'm like, I'm like 400 pounds, right? Like, yeah, you couldn't pick me up on your best day, even if I jump like an Olympic style jumping, like a leaper, like that's leaping, or a pole vaulter. Like if I jump, you're not gonna be able to hold me up to do anything. And I proved that because I remember, not gonna say who it was. I was doing a Wrestling Is show for Mike Quackenbush, which were like the sister promotions for Chikara back in the day. And it's like, can you pick you up on the shoulders? I'm like, how about we do this spot? I get crotched on the top, and then I fall onto your shoulders, and then you can give me the Death Valley Driver, but this way I can push my feet off and I can do it myself. He's like, okay, but I think I can hold you up and do it. And I said, don't do that. Because I knew he wasn't going to be able to hold me. So we're up there, crouch on the top spot, goes to grab me. Okay, ready? So I push off on my feet to take the bump for the Death Valley Driver to push off. He stumbles out, stops, and tries to hold me there, and then tries to swing me for the Death Valley Driver. His knees buckle, falls flat on his face.
Oh.
This is supposed to be the finish, too. This is supposed to be the finish. So I'm pissed. I'm laying on top of him now. And I look at him. I'm like, I told you not to hold me. He's like, I know. I'm sorry. I pick him up. I whip him off the ropes. I say, duck the line, give me a schoolboy, and pin me. He ducks the line. I turn around. He tries to pick me up for a body slam.
No, a second time?
Yeah, he tries to pick me up a second time. Goes for the body slam. And I jump the best I can. I get up there. He drops me.
Fuck.
And instead of pinning me, he tries to pick me up again. I'm so pissed at this point.
It's like you just take this shit home. Come on.
He picks me up. I look at him like, you better fucking roll me up because I'm fucking done. And he does. He pins me. And I get out of the ring. And I'm fucking heated. And Quack can see that I'm mad. He's like, you okay? I'm like, maybe if the asshole I was wrestling listened to me the first 2 times instead of going into business for himself, we wouldn't have a fucking problem. And then Quack just looked at him. He looked at Quack. And he goes, my bad. And he apologizes to me. I'm like, dude, no apologies accepted because you dropped me on my fucking head. After I told you 2 times what we should have done.
Like the first time, Brian, you saw what it was. He went for something. He said, sorry, fuck it. If he stopped there, took the Irish Road, did whatever he had to do. To try it again, that's insanity.
It's because everybody wants to be Superman but doesn't have the strength of Superman. So I can jump all day, but if you're going to try to hold a 400-pound person in position for a long period of time, you have to be able to hold them.
Like, that's the thing. They're watching WrestleMania 3. They scoop slam you like Andre. It's not going to happen.
Well, with Andre, he just did like a little. He didn't even jump though. He just kind of like leaned over and turned and took his own bump.
Hogan had muscle too. Hogan was pretty strong.
Yeah, but if you look, Andre didn't even jump. He just turned and kind of almost like did a cartwheel, kind of, and bumped.
Yeah, it was almost scoop slam. It could have been. It wasn't like a full-on press.
Yeah. So when I'm up for a Death Valley Driver and he had the chance to just do the spot like we planned, and it would have looked great and got a good bop. But he had to be the badass and try to hold me up there and make look good. Like, if you can't hold me up there, don't. If I'm up there already, if I got up there for you and you can't hold me there, that means that's on you. So I think more wrestlers need to realize that shit. Like, you can't do something, don't do it.
That's how people get hurt, though, doing things you know you can't do.
Well, that's why I was mad, because I have to go home. I have 2 kids. So, like, I don't want to end my life for you so you could try to look good, but you can't do it physically. You know what I mean? Like, you can't physically do it, don't do it. It's different when you're doing a simple shit. Like, if he was to do the Death Valley Driver spot like I planned, where I'd take my own bump, fine, whatever. But
you were in control of how you were going to land. Like, that was on you. You weren't just getting free thrown drop from wherever.
No.
Not knowing really how you're going to land, trying to land as safely as possible. And
honestly, I think that's what probably burned the bridge with Quack. He saw I was really mad and upset, and I knew he wasn't happy with the match either, and I wasn't happy with it either. I was like, how about we not put me with people that don't listen? Like, I get it. In wrestling, everybody wants to look the best they can, so I understand that. Like, I've also had the exact opposite. I've had great matches there at Wrestling As. I had a match with Jaka that was fucking amazing, which we became great friends over. So,
but just the way you were talking about your original finish you had planned sounded like it would have made everybody look good.
Yeah, I would have taken a big bump and it would have sounded great. Like a big 400-pound guy taking a Death Valley Driver off the top rope.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
when
to
a
the casual fan, they wouldn't have known. They wouldn't even have cared if the guy held you on his shoulders or not. They would have just seen the movement.
I've
They would
literally done that same spot with Justin Incredible before on one of my shows, and it got a huge reaction when he did it to me.
and
Huge.
that's why
Everybody shit their
you
pants.
listen to vets in a match when they
Yeah,
tell you.
like, it's different world now, man. I guess different world. People just want to do what they want to do. So it's fine. It's fine. I wrestling changes with the good and the bad. That's how it is.
It does, it changes, but I mean, I think for the most part, would you say it's a better industry, cleaner industry than when you got in?
Oh yeah, because we vetted out a lot of the bad people. Um, all the movements that come through that pushed out all the bad apples. You know what I mean? And you'll still get those people that will bitch about anything because they're going to be there to bitch. Like that goes back to like the whole people putting the stigma of Maine wrestling from back in the day, and they put a lot of that back on IWE when I was running. But I was also the only game in town and was using, like I said, the open door policy where I let everybody wrestle, even if I was full up and someone wanted to get work in, I would make room for them. And then they would bitch afterwards they weren't getting paid for it. I'm like, I have messages showing that you agreed to come up for no pay, even though I told you I was full up and had no room on the show, and I would make an extra match. My shows used to be super long. Tony Atlas will tell you, if you talk to him at the Ring Wars, he used to joke back in the day when I first started running because my shows were like 3 hours long. So I would let people come and wrestle. Eventually, when I was doing TV tapings, I trimmed it down to 2.5. And then after TV was done, I trimmed it down to 2. I always kept trying to trim it. Now he's happy because my shows are early. They're earlier in the day. Like they're over by 9. There's 6 matches. We call it a day. He was so happy. He's like, how many matches you got on this show, Eric? I said 6. 3 intermission, then 3. He goes, oh, Eric, I love that. I'm like, yep. He knows I'll be home and in bed by midnight or before. So like that's. There's things in wrestling in Maine that I had to take on the chin when that was one of them. Like, the stigma thing. Also, the stigma thing was from people wanting exorbitant amounts of pay that I think is unreasonable. Back in the day, mind you, this was years ago, gas was cheaper, food was cheaper, everything was cheaper. So a $30, $40 payday wasn't that bad back in the day when gas is like $2 a gallon. It's cheap. So like it was a different time. Also, I'm paying for TV and stuff. So most people knew like, hey, you're getting free publicity on the TV show that aired on YouTube and on the Fox station. So you're getting free publicity that you could use for whatever.
Yeah.
And then you had full access to the episode. I'd upload the episode the day it would air. So people had full access to the episode.
Let's face it, even in today's market, wrestling isn't always a lucrative business. You might not make money off the booking. You might still get the $40. It might take 40 for the ride. But now you have the option to sell merch and try to get an extra 100, selling 5 T-shirts and doing other things. Yeah. But your initial payday isn't going to make you bank. You're not going to go home filthy rich from this.
Especially when no one back then, like if no one knew you, like, and I'm giving you a shot and I'm just being reasonable to your expenses, like I'm not going to get you a hotel. No, get out of here. Like, stop it. Like some people wanted some really dumb things. Like I will tell you, like Gino Martino knows this story. And we talked about it and he gave the dude shit afterwards. I'm not gonna say his name to who did this, but I hit up a dude. I had worked him at an NCW show. Liked him. We hit it off. We're cool. I said, hey, you want to come up? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I said, okay, well, I'll hit you up when I get back, not in the middle. Like, so we hit it off at NCW, but I'll hit him up. Hit up the dude and he's like, yeah, I'll come up. What's your dates? And I told him the weekend. And then he proceeds to hit me what he wants for the weekend. He wants a hotel, all gas paid, $200. The hotel, gas paid, $200. And I'm like, no one knows who you are up here.
You can get one WWE guy cheaper than that.
I literally could have paid an extra instead of with all that together, I could have got Tony Atlas for cheaper. Because I used him every month, so he gave me a discounted rate because I would use him once a month, Tony, because I would have so many shows, or every other month, depending on his schedule. So he gave me a discounted rate, And Tony even realized by him being on my shows and him being on television again up here, that makes his stock still go up too. So like he wasn't a total dick about it. But I
No,
had
because I mean,
explained,
he's one of those guys that actually, wrestled back in the day and is still going strong today.
yeah. So I explained it. I tried to explain it to the guy when I was like, dude, no one knows who you are up here. I can't pay you $200 for the weekend, have a hotel, and you're trans. No. And he's like, okay, well, I guess I can't come up then. So I told Gino about it later on down the line because Gino was a good friend of mine. He would even stay at my house when he comes up, not even have to pay for a hotel. He'd come up, and this is even after the Stanley Superhuman stuff. He'd come up. He was my champ, and I paid him okay, and he stayed at my house. And we used to both smoke cigars. I don't smoke or drink anymore, but I'd buy cigars for us and shit like that. Give him free food, things like that. When he was up here, took care of him because he's my buddy. And I told him the story, and I remember I guess he let into him the said person after the weekend was over. He let into that said person, I guess, when he saw him next. He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, he was just,
I think people try to take advantage. They think, well, let me see how far I can get. I mean,
I understand trying to get your value. I do. I understand trying to get your value for what you're asking. But because I would tell people no a lot to what they asked, I was like, I can't afford that. Sorry. And then I wouldn't negotiate. I wouldn't negotiate at that point. I was insulted. Once I get insulted, I don't negotiate.
That's the thing. Even people's value sometimes isn't necessarily going to work for a show, even with a good budget. It might, depending on how many seating and what the ticket prices and all that determines on, what people are going to get. I mean, if someone's coming in really high and they're not worth it, you're not going to see a return. It's an automatic loss right off the bat before anything happens.
Right. And I'm willing to negotiate with people. But if you go so high that I feel insulted, I don't negotiate because that tells me you're just trying to work me.
They have no respect for your promotion of what you're doing. They think you're just, that you're a nobody, that they're a bigger name than you and they're going to big league you.
Yeah, and I learned that early on, so I didn't. I used to kayfabe people. They'd be like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying that, no thanks. And then I would not. They'd be like, well, what's your offer? And I wouldn't set an offer back because I'd be like, nope, you just insulted me. I'm not going to offer. I'm like, I'm all set, man, no thanks. And then there's people that would negotiate and hit me with a semi-reasonable rate, and then I'd fire back and we'd negotiate.
And you make something that works, and
everybody. And then I have good rapport with people. Like back when Brian Fury ran New England Pro Wrestling Academy, we had a good working relationship. He would send me students because he was like, he'd be like, okay, pay them, like $20 or whatever a person because they're green and had like less than 10 matches a piece. Like Christian Casanova, which is Carmelo Hayes now, one of his first matches was for IWE. So it's him and Pat Skills versus good Hank Flanders and Johnny Primer. One of his first under 10 matches.
I mean, that's the thing. Everybody starts somewhere, and those initial guys, they might be working free. They might be working for $20.
You send up a carload of guys. It'd be like 4 guys in the car, $20 a head. It's $80, and back then gas was cheap.
In a rumble, you might have them in a rumble for $20.
No, I'd give them a legit match, whether it be a tag or whatever. They'd be legit matches. It wouldn't be just rumble spots, but I'd give them $20 a piece, and they'd come up in a carload. And I was cool with that, because they hadn't had any experience yet. So this was their chance to get experience, and I would give them work. Same thing during the fair. I remember, it was the first or second fair run, or maybe the third. Fury actually came up for one of my fair shows, was running Scary Hegan Fair. And he sent me a bunch of people up from the academy, and he was like, "Can I come up this day?" I'm like, "Me and the girl are going to come up, and I can enjoy the fair and then wrestle on the show." And I said, "Yeah." And he came up cheap because he was just making a day out of it. Him and his girl had a day off, so he came up. I think I gave him back then $60 to come up for just him and his girl, and then they went out on the fair and had a good time after the match. And I was like, whatever, do whatever you want. He came up just because he knew, it was like, oh, I can fill the day and have a good time and do whatever. And he was reasonable about it because he knew I had TV and he knew I was constantly used people. It was constant work. Yeah, I ran 4 to 6 shows a month and had the TV exposure, and we had quite a following on our YouTube.
Understand that the things aren't free, and it costs people to run things. It takes money to make money. And
Mhm.
sometimes, you can't always get, these high end things, but if you can get something that everyone's happy, if you can get a rig that you're happy with, that you're making something or at least breaking even,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
I said, maybe I don't get to make a big ton of money off the book and I get my gas paid for, right? Because I got to drive. But then I get all these merch opportunities. If I'm good at merch, I might bring home $200-300 in the night. There's
Yeah.
people that make more money on merch than they do wrestling.
Right.
And merch game isn't just
Right.
T-shirts anymore. You got
Well,
people make
back
figures.
I'll say that back in the day, during that time where we were talking about, a lot of guys didn't have merch. People just didn't know how or didn't want to do it, didn't want to market it. I used to corner the market on merch up here a lot for many a years because no one had money to get it, or no one wanted to get it, or didn't want to do the work. I remember IWE, we had T-shirt lines. Man, I remember even heels. We had a group of heels called Team UK. We had this coolest Team UK logo shirt, like whatever. And I went through 3 runs of shirts. I made the shirts, made the money, spent it, did all deal, made all the money off of it. Guys didn't care because they just didn't want to buy the shit.
Merch is a big thing. I mean,
Had a tag
and
team called.
the merch game today is wild. You got people with customized figures.
Oh yeah,
Trading cards.
it's a great time for being a fan and getting merch. Had another T-shirt line called tag team called Mass Wrestlers Anonymous, and it was a cool looking shirt. And we sold, I think that was the hottest selling shirt I ever had. I think I must have gone like 8 runs of that shirt.
Wow,
And it was crazy. Yeah, and that's like 30 plus pieces per order. And we sold them all. It was a wild time, man. Like back then, I was making a lot of merch, and that which helped because that was my personal money. That's what I would actually get out of the shows because everything I'd always recycle the money from the shows into the next show and the next show. The merch is the personal money I got to keep because
nice to be green in yourself or bring home a paycheck, and it was like, oh, cool.
And sometimes I didn't get to keep it because I end up sometimes taking the merch money and paying for TV with it or buying something fresh. Like when I bought the cage, I literally bought it out of like the excess money from fair shows one year. I did this Skowhegan Fair run, had extra money at the end, and I bought the cage and literally had it delivered to the fair. And surprise, the last day of the fair, they got to have a cage match because it was there.
Knew.
Nobody knew. I surprised them with it, and mind you, the person who runs, and owns the Skowhegan Fair was there that day, and it was the first year I did it. Surprised him with it. It was that night. Tony Atlas was in the cage. I can't remember with who. But imagine seeing Tony Atlas in the ring in a steel cage match with somebody is the main event of a show on a fair, and there was hundreds of people. There must have been like 500 people at the fair watching it that night.
Wow.
And one of them was the owner. He goes back, I want you every day next year. I'm like, bet. All because I had it delivered to the fair because the person who owned it had to show me how to set it up. So I said, well, why don't we just use it on the show?
Let's just use it for no dry run. Let's just go for it.
It helped me get the fairs every year. I got it for 3 years straight. Anyway, I set it up, and he stayed for the dude that was selling the ring, stayed for the fair till the time in the ring, the cage had to go up. He showed me how to do it. We put it all up. And when the show ended, he left. We took it down. I put it in I had roof racks on the van that had the ring in it, so it slid right on top of the roof racks, and the ring went in the van, and it was super convenient.
It's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Must have been a sight, though. Must have been a sight. Just thinking, like, the fairs are outdoors, so an outdoor, the cage, you got the area, you got the atmosphere, all the people.
It drew people in because they saw the cage getting erected. And it would get more people.
Possible back then to get that.
Yeah.
At a local show.
And I remember the owner of the fair coming up to me, Walter Height. He's a car dealership owner. He came up to me and he's like, doing a cage match? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh. He was all excited. He's like, all right. He's Tim and the rest of his like people that were working with the fair that helped run it watched it and met Tony. And that's how I knew I solidified it. And just to see the faces on people, like just sea of people. And Tony's in the cage with somebody, and I'm just like, this is couldn't have planned this any better. Like, and it wasn't intended to be like that. It just worked out that way. And yeah, and I'm literally like the money at the end of the day, like the guy who owned the cage came back. I'm not gonna say who he is, and I don't know if he cares or not. But he came back, and I gave him the money after we took the cage down, because he went and enjoyed the fair. He watched the show, obviously. Went and enjoyed the fair, came back, gave him the money right after, because it was like after everything was all said and done. It's just like, well, the money I had left, it was just enough to pay for the cage. So I literally was trickling all my money. I had enough money left in my wallet to get home for gas. So everybody used to think I made a ton of money running these shows, and I'm like, I recycled every bit of it. I was actually at one point in a lot of debt. So
It can happen. I mean, it's not
business
easy to make
business accounts. I cleaned
And
all
that's
that up when I sold the company. So
any business. It doesn't take off overnight. There's no real quick fix. Things build up. There's lulls, there's hills, valleys, peaks. There's all sorts of things that can happen.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's very hard. You know, depending on the market, depending on shows, depending on people getting injured, you always got something that goes on that can make you take a loss, make you take a dip.
I did a 3-day weekend on an anniversary weekend, and the first day I drew huge numbers. The second day was a blizzard. Lost my shirt. Third day was an average show. Wasn't great. So I was in the hole from that second show, though. So the money I made from the first show helped pay for the second show, and then the third show being mediocre didn't help any. So I literally, at the end of the day,
You were back where you started.
back where I started. So like there's no winning like with promoting. People got to understand you got to promote first, then book second. And with the stigma of Maine wrestling as it was, people just didn't want to hear that. They expected you to just pay out your ass, and everybody should be booked and be paid with this X, Y, or Z amount of money. I'm like, so you want me to pay for TV, pay you, pay this, pay that, pay everything? And that's why I was like, at the end of the day, when I finally sold the company, I was so burnt out, and I was like, why am I even doing this? Why am I even doing this anymore? I might as well just sell it and get the fuck out. And that's what I did. And I took the money from selling and paid off all my debt, which was accumulated from the shows, and moved
Now,
on.
when you say pay for TV, do you mean the production part of it, or to actually be on the network? So to be on TV?
To be on a TV station, you have to pay for that. To be on a TV
They
station, no. What it is with a TV station, they sell that time slot.
Yeah.
Just like commercials, that's selling ad time. They sell the time slot. So first they have to approve of your whatever product or show you're doing. Well, the TV execs from Fox had already had a wrestling show on their station, but had known we were local and had seen our show and had literally come to one of my shows and wanted our shows on there. So we had to work out a deal, and they gave me a great price for a 1-hour TV time slot. Mind you, I could sell my own ad time in that time slot, which I did to like garages and restaurants, local business, anything I could get, and I would even go and produce the commercial myself. But the point being is, the TV show is a certain amount of money to get on there, and then you're not done yet, because your TV show has closed captioning on it. You have to pay someone outside of the TV station to do that. They have people that they can set you up with, but you have to pay for that too.
Luckily now it's all AI. You just can do it in and out.
Probably, yeah. But back then, no. Closed captioning.
You had to hire a person.
It had to be outsourced. That's the word I was looking for. It had to be outsourced.
They would literally transcribe everything over.
Yeah, so you would pay for the airing and then the closed captioning costs for every episode. And mind you, I did that for years.
And that was just all you just by yourself coming out of it. Then, like you said, that's just to get the product out there, not even to run the product, not even to run the show, pay the work, just set it all up. And you were doing these shows in front of live audiences as well. So you had ticket prices, but again,
pay for everybody and advertising costs.
That might cover just the show, but then you still got the other end of it, the TV end of it. Plus, like you said, so something's got to be kind of wiggled, and there's got to be something kind of sliding downward.
Why everything got recycled? Everything, every bit of money got recycled except for like the merch. The merch is what I tell everybody. That's where I made my money. That's why and then I still was working my normal job up until, well, at one point I wasn't, but I was working still for most of that, 90% of it. So, but it was a rough time. Like people don't seem to understand. Like back then, They just saw what they weren't getting, or the spot they weren't getting. Like my shows are very play to everybody tastes. Like we had entertainment value. We still had competitive wrestling. We had our workhorse style matches, but we had kids stuff. We had adult stuff. We had everything. So because I wasn't playing to one market either, which is the modern market now that you see, which is like competitive style, we had that stuff. We shouldn't have it all the time because character based. You talk about character based stuff. I was heavy into that. I remember, and I don't really like his work in ring work, but I remember I had Roadblock, Mark Mahoney, coming out, and he was not the greatest wrestler. But I had him come out to Cotton Eye Joe, and he'd have his bottle of Moxie and his pet goat, and come out to the ring, and people were singing Cotton Eye Joe and dancing and stupid shit like that. It was over, and people loved it. I remember Big Moxie Matt Mahoney, who was later Zach Burton, coming out to Hank Williams Jr. All my rowdy friends are coming over tonight, and the crowd is singing along with the song as he comes out to the ring drinking a giant bottle of Moxie. He hated it. He hated it, but it got over. I remember.
Like I said, I grew up watching people like, some of my earliest wrestlers and just wrestling memories from wrestling, people like George the Animal Steel. Not a tremendous wrestler, but just a wild character.
I had Joseph Primer, who was the manager of Johnny Primer, come out, and he would sit outside of the shows with a can, like he looked like a bum. He called him Hobo Joe. He had like one of those like cans asking for change, and he would sit out there. We would specifically put enough change in there so he could buy a ticket, and then he would sit in the audience. And then when he had to wrestle, he'd be like, "Someone's looking for an opponent," and he'd get up, "I'll wrestle for some change," and he'd get up there and wrestle, and it was over. People loved it.
That's fun stuff. Again, wrestling can be competitive, but can also be fun. It can be everything.
And I did a lot of that. I did a lot of character based stuff, and then you'd still have your competitive stuff. Like I had Jeremy Prophet versus Scotty Wild have a series of 7 matches that was all competitive wrestling, and they would tell an amazing story. I had Mark Quinn, who is now on AEW. He ran a series of matches with Jeremy Prophet and did some competitive wrestling. We had a bunch of that. We had all the competitive wrestling. I would bring in guys like Sanjay Dutt, who are competitive wrestlers, to wrestle guys competitively, like Jay Gillette, and do matches like that. I had Andy McKenzie versus because Sanjay Dutt and Rene Dupree, and guys that wanted to wrestle competitively. I set that up still, but we had entertainment too. And because I'm not the guy that goes, we need to have one formula. No, I like a whole giant stew rather than one set formula. Thank you. Because the stew tastes good with all the different flavors, not just one. So all these things led to the stigma of Maine wrestling, and I was a part of it, but I was also part of keeping it alive. So people that can hate it can still hate it, but people that loved it, you're welcome, because we left the light on. We were the only game in town for many a year. Even after NWM Fire left, we were still here. So,
and I mean, it set the way up for people to be able to come in and show people how to operate in Maine and put Maine on the map, honestly.
Yeah.
And right now, Maine is in a boom era of wrestling. There's never been better wrestling up in Maine right now than you're seeing today.
Agreed.
And I love to see it. I'm here for it. We have now hit the 3-hour mark. I think that's what you were waiting for, Roz. I think you like 3-hour episodes. You like 3-hour wrestling shows. You like 3-hour podcasts. I see you're in for the long haul of it all.
I don't like 3-hour wrestling shows. I like to have 2 hours and call it a day, but we keep getting on new topics, so I'll stop now.
I know there's a lot of history. That's the problem. But no, I will
let you. It's hard to encompass 21 years into now 3 hours and 3 minutes.
I could probably run a show with you every week, and probably you would have a different, hour worth of stories to tell me, and still never capture everything that you went through in pro wrestling in 21 years. It's a wild industry. There's so much stuff that just is mind blowing at times that you can't even process it for like 5 years. Then you think about it and be like, did that really even happen? It's like a fever dream. Wrestling's wild, but it's great to have people like you in it, paving the way, doing things that you have done, making the industry a great place. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Thank you everybody at home for watching. And as always, support indie wrestling. Versace Stoner out.